Chapter 1950. The boundless images supported by the vassals were sometimes solid and real, sometimes illusory and indistinct. The rapid changes proved just how unstable their emotions were at this moment, and it stirred up great waves that shocked the heavens. This was hard for them to accept. They only knew about the cooperation between the Purple Marquis and the Myriad Demon Palace 3 days ago when the Purple Marquis decided to kill Lin Hanqing after the banquet. In the Purple Marquis's plan, the Myriad Demon Palace would support the southern vassals to overthrow the Eastern Dynasty and establish a new court. After the success, the Myriad Demon Palace would become the protector of the new court, but they would not interfere with the normal operations of the new court. In their impression, the Myriad Demon Palace was high and mighty. It was only because of their relationship with the Purple Marquis that they helped, making the vassals feel like they got a great bargain. But now, after hearing this news, everyone's heart fell into the abyss. They felt a chill all over their body. The Marquis of Shanshui felt like, when he was a child, he had no strength to even truss a chicken. On a hot afternoon, he was bored to death as he strolled in the back garden. He found a green object and thought it was an emerald necklace dropped by a concubine. He excitedly wanted to pick it up and play with it. When he got closer, he found that it was a green, slippery, and cold poisonous snake with a triangular head. The poisonous snake stuck out its tongue and its eyes were cold. The slippery and disgusting feeling seemed to reach his heart. We are playing with fire. If Jiang Xiqing did not lie to us, then there must be a conspiracy. We have been played by Dongfang Jie or the Purple Marquis. Not only did the Marquis of Shanshui think this, the other vassals were also alarmed. Back then, Dongfang Jie, who was overthrown and chased to death by them, became their backing to overthrow Dongfang Lu, who did not support his reform. How could Dongfang Jie be so kind as to help them? Moreover, Dongfang Jie's hatred for the feudal system was deep in his bones. Therefore, when he just ascended to the throne and took control of the imperial power, he did not have enough time to prepare and immediately took action against the corrupt feudal vassals. When the war broke out, his family and loyal subordinates all died in the hands of the vassals. He was even chased off the throne and chased like a stray dog to the evil-infested ridge. He saw with his own eyes that in order to avoid being humiliated by the vassals, his concubines and princesses committed suicide. In his endless despair and hatred, he fell into the Grand Canyon. After going through this life and death calamity and suffering humiliation, Dongfang Jie's hatred towards the Marquis should be even greater. In this world, was there anything more serious than killing one's son or humiliating one's wife? Moreover, he was not a weakling. He was a man of great talent and bold vision. As the ruler of a country, his status was respected. This difference was even more obvious on him. This kind of emotion would become even more intense. If one thought about it carefully, they would understand it very clearly. Dongfang Jie loathed Eastern Lu, who had not supported him in dethroning the vassals and had still reconciled with them after he was exiled and killed. He loathed these vassals even more. Therefore, he used Purple Marquis as a troublemaker to stir up the conflict between the Marquis and the royal family, starting a war. He watched coldly from the sidelines and hid behind the scenes with a mocking smile. He enjoyed the dogfight between the enemies. When the royal family and the vassals were both injured, he would appear and easily reap the harvest. Purple Marquis's expression greatly changed. After being stunned for a few seconds, he angrily pointed at Jiang Tian and said, "Jiang Xiqing, you are slandering me. Demon King Han Guang is a great demon with the bloodline of the heaven-devouring python. How could he be related to Dongfang Jie?" "Ha, so you were also tricked." Jiang Tian saw this and laughed instead. Before, he originally thought that Purple Marquis and Dongfang Jie were working together selflessly to fight for their ideals. Like Dongfang Jie, they hated the feudal system to the core. Even after Dongfang Jie established a new dynasty, they would hand over their land and authority, leaving behind only a title or a minister. They would no longer be hereditary. But now, it seemed that Purple Marquis was also deceived and played by Dongfang Jie. But on second thought, it was no wonder. Purple Marquis had always been an extremely selfish person. Hundreds of years ago, Purple Marquis hated the county system and was the vanguard to overthrow the late Emperor Dongfang Jie. Even now, he was still thinking about taking over his land and becoming the emperor. How could he change his attitude so quickly and completely and become a supporter of the county system? What do you mean by tricked? You are just spouting nonsense. Purple Marquis was shocked, but he forced himself to calm down. Thoughts flashed through his mind like lightning. Han Guang was Dongfang Jie, and he had definitely been tricked. No wonder every time he met Han Guang, he felt a sense of familiarity from Han Guang's actions. His appearance, bloodline, cultivation methods, and even the gods and precepts that he had condensed could all be changed. However, there would always be some traces left behind in his speech and actions. But now he had no other choice. The most important thing now was to make the Marquis believe in him, kill Jiang Siqing and the eldest princess, and then find other forces, such as the giants of the hidden sects, to help him overthrow the imperial court and even the pantheon of demons. He swept his gaze over the numerous vassals and army formations, a look of boundless determination appearing on his face as he waved his hand and shouted. He waved his hand and said, "Don't listen to this man's lies and shake the morale of the army. Now that we've joined forces, we're only a step away from success and recognition. After we kill this bastard and demoness Inkfeather, we'll directly attack the enemy's den and breach the imperial capital. We'll kill the incapable ruler and fulfill our lofty aspirations to save all living beings in the world and establish peace for all ages." Alas, since I said so, of course I have evidence. Jiang Tian smiled and released Niu Ben's god unhurriedly. He said with a smile, "Niu Ben's god is one of the 4 guardians of the pantheon of demons. Is that enough?" This is Niu Ben's god. What? God Niu Ben was killed by him, and only his god is left. Isn't he too strong? The whole place was filled with gasps. At this moment, the faces of the vassals changed wildly. They were shocked and couldn't believe it. A celestial device that could break through space, arrive in an instant, and realize long-distance surveillance consumed a lot of high-grade heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Moreover, it required extremely skilled craftsmen to carve mysterious formation patterns. It wasn't something that anyone could control. In the Saint Origin world, generally speaking, only the top holy clans or holy lands or empires had it. The vassal families didn't have this kind of surveillance celestial device. Even the fragrant medicine house didn't have it. Therefore, Landlord Wang could only get the news from the disciple who was a guest in the Eastern Canyon Duke Mansion. Eastern Lu and Crown Prince Dongfang Ding already knew about the battle on Hundred Flowers Peak. However, to avoid alerting the enemy, they naturally sealed the outside world. In short, the vassals had no idea about the details of the battle. Before this, they thought that Jiang Tian had escaped by luck. They didn't expect that he had killed God Niu Ben. This made them feel incredulous. They looked at Jiang Tian in shock and fear, as if they were dreaming. Mr. Jiang's strength is actually so terrifying? You should know that he used divine powers similar to Qi into Trinity. It was only a doppelganger that went to Hundred Flowers Peak. Not only them, but even Princess Mou's delicate body trembled slightly. Her face was full of shock. Her beautiful eyes were wide open as she looked at Jiang Tian's tall and dignified back with extraordinary splendor. It was as if she had met Jiang Tian for the first time. Although she knew that Jiang Tian's strength was extraordinary, she didn't expect Jiang Tian's strength to be so strong. He killed God Niu Ben with only a doppelganger. Chapter 1951. Sir God Niu Ben was famous and had reached the peak of the soul formation stage. His strength was comparable to a half-sage and was close to that of a void-return saint. Even in the entire Saint Origin world, he was a giant. With only a doppelganger, he killed Sir God Niu Ben of Monster Clan. This is too unbelievable. As for Lin Yang and Dongfang Ying, they were shocked to the extreme. They were dumbfounded and could not say a word. "Master, Xiaoniu thanks Mr. Jiang for not killing me." Niu Pai God kowtowed in front of Jiang Tian and shivered as he kowtowed on the ground. "Don't talk nonsense. Tell them the truth. Jiang Tian was calm and at ease as he accepted the bow of the defeated opponent. Yes, master. Xiaoniu, I'll do it, I'll do it. Like an old eunuch facing a majestic emperor, Sir God Niu Ben bowed again and again in fear and trepidation. Only then did he dare to stand up. However, in front of the feudal lords, Sir God Niu Ben was arrogant and domineering to the extreme. I can testify that Demon King Han Guang is Dongfang Jie. Don't be stubborn and refuse to realize your error. Put down your weapons immediately, disperse the army formation and abandon the darkness for the light. Do I have to say it again? So we've been fooled. When the feudal lords heard this, they were almost convinced. Their faces were ashen and their morale was low. Among the feudal lords, only Marquis Shanshui was unwilling to accept this. After all, he had lost his fief to Lin Hanqing. Now, he could only fight to the end to have a chance of survival. Besides, he was not afraid of anything. He shouted boldly, "Niu Ben, if you say so, then so be it. Your god was captured by Jiang Xiqing. Naturally, you will listen to him. Whatever he tells you to say, you will say it. It's not credible at all. Damn you, my spit is a nail. Why would I lie? How dare you slander me? Believe it or not, I will trample you to death with my hoof." Hearing this, Niu Ben's god flew into a rage, and vast magic power surged. "Niu Ben, prove it to them. If you can't prove it, what's the use of having you? I'll kill you now." Jiang Tian's face was calm, but his eyes were cold. Niu Ben's god was shivering in fear. It flickered as if it was about to collapse. Suddenly, he slapped his head and took out a strand of hair from his storage pouch. He bowed and flattered, "This is a strand of hair from the demon emperor Han Guang that I collected. It contains a strand of his blood and spirit. With the blood rebirth technique and the body creation technique, I can deduce the changes in Han Guang's appearance throughout his life. Whether or not he is the emperor of the fallen kingdom, Dongfang Jie, will be obvious at a glance." In the next moment, a look of fear and uneasiness appeared on his face. He said in shame, "It's just that my magic power is low. I need at least half a year to be able to simulate his appearance when he reaches adulthood. Let me do it." Jiang Tian smiled faintly and pointed at the sky. Vast wood elemental True Yuan burst out from Jiang Tian's fingertips like a torrent of green light spots, forming a mysterious talisman. The talisman was made up of countless tiny and mysterious runes. Each tiny rune was like a small world when heaven and earth were created. It was full of vitality and could nurture everything. The green talisman quickly wrapped around the strand of hair and poured into it. Bang! In the hair, a drop of blood was extracted and appeared in the air. It floated like a crystal-clear agate. In the blink of an eye, a vast amount of life essence was poured into it. The drop of blood quickly turned into an embryo the size of a soybean. It kept expanding and the spine, hands and feet, facial features, and hair gradually became clear. It was growing into a human. Next, scenes appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was both real and illusory. The blood in the hair was nourished and shaped into a human body. The memory of Dongfang Jie in his soul was also awakened. The baby grew up quickly. He first became a child with a pure gaze, but with the majesty of an emperor. Then he became a teenager, standing quietly with a gloomy face. He seemed to have seen the feudal lords of the empire meddling in politics, ignoring the royal family, oppressing the common people, annexing the land, and making the people miserable. Then he became a teenager, sometimes with a vigorous aura, traveling the pugilistic world, visiting the common people and practicing in the sections. Sometimes he was pale and thin, reading ancient books in the Taisher Pavilion and debating with loyal advisors. When he became the crown prince, he was high-spirited, looking for a teacher, forming his own cabinet, proposing to abolish the feudal system and promote the system of counties. His eyes burned with madness. In almost 10 seconds, the past appeared. The former emperor Dongfang Jie, who was now the demon emperor, Han Guang's life, which was full of ups and downs, appeared in front of everyone's eyes. In the blink of an eye, 500 years had passed. This was a lonely and crazy life. This was a lonely and cruel life. This Han Guang is really Dongfang Jie. Some of the feudal lords murmured, their faces full of despair. "We have been used." Even the Marquis of Shanshui was dumbfounded. His heart fell into the abyss. His fighting spirit and hot blood cooled faster than cow dung in winter. Dongfang Jie's plan was to use the Marquis of Purple Robe to provoke the inherent conflict between the feudal lords and the royal family. Then, with the pantheon of demons and the power accumulated over hundreds of years, he would come back and crush Dongfang Lu and all the feudal lords who rebelled against him in the past to avenge them. He had never thought of supporting the Marquis of Purple Robe to become the emperor. He still wanted to promote the system of counties in the empire. All the feudal lords would not even be given idle titles and would be executed. He would build a country where the human race and the demon race were equal, and the demon race was even higher than the human race. The human race would worship the mighty demon race. The pantheon of demons would be the pope that was higher than the imperial power. Dongfang Jie would be the highest god. Thank goodness fellow cultivator Jiang reminded us. Otherwise, wouldn't we have been used by Dongfang Jie? Not only would we have done all the work for him, we would have died in the end. Fellow cultivator Jiang not only saved us, but also the entire empire. Once the civil war broke out, I'm afraid millions of cultivators would die an unnatural death. The lives of mortals without cultivation would be as cheap as dogs. Starving bodies would be everywhere, bones would be piled up, and the people would be miserable. It would be difficult to recover in hundreds of years. How can the Eastern Empire stand in the world? The key is that the Black Moon Empire and other neighboring countries in the south were originally eyeing the Eastern Empire covetously, trying to encroach on it. If our civil war broke out, wouldn't it give them a chance to take advantage of it? They wouldn't give you time to recover at all. Instead, they would take advantage of your internal strife to defeat you and divide you up. From then on, the Eastern Empire would be destroyed. We must abandon the darkness for the light and rely on Mr. Jiang. Mr. Jiang could even kill the divine Lord Niu Pai, let alone the Marquis of Purple Robe. Yes, under Mr. Jiang's leadership, the Eastern Empire will definitely prosper and achieve a great recovery and resurgence. We must follow closely. In the midst of the discussion, the 5 feudal lords automatically moved away from the Marquis of Purple Robe and approached Jiang Tian. Chapter 1952. The southern vassals bowed deeply to Jiang Tian to show their highest respect. They begged for mercy and expressed their deep apologies. They all claimed that they were blinded by lard and asked the Grand Princess and Mr. Jiang not to blame them. The situation had taken a turn for the worse, and the wind had unknowingly changed. Jiang Tian, who had been a stumbling block in their grand plan, had suddenly become their savior. Especially when they thought that Jiang Tian could even subdue a peerless almighty like Niu Ben, they trembled uneasily. Even the last trace of fighting spirit had completely disappeared, leaving only deep fear. Mr. Jiang was able to turn the tables in such a desperate situation. It turns out that the famous demon emperor Han Guang is actually his elder brother, Dongfang Jie. Seeing this scene, Grand Princess Dongfang Ying felt like she was dreaming and couldn't believe it. Originally, millions of soldiers had surrounded them, and the battle formation was unstoppable and indestructible. She and Jiang Tian had already fallen into a peerless killing trap with almost no possibility of escaping. But now Jiang Tian had disintegrated Purple Marquis's alliance with just a few words. Purple Marquis, who was originally the core of the leadership, had become the target of public criticism. Having a high cultivation and being brave and good at fighting were admirable, but the most brilliant thing was to subdue the enemy without fighting. That was even more commendable. This made Grand Princess Mou's admiration for Jiang Tian reach an unprecedented level. After all, Grand Princess Mou was the core of the royal family. She had a strategic position and her perspective was different from ordinary people. Everything she did was based on the overall interests of the empire. In her opinion, the vassals should be suppressed and even eliminated. However, the cultivators and warriors under the vassals were also the empire's subjects and the empire's most precious wealth. If a war broke out, even if the royal family won, the cultivators and warriors would die. That would be an immeasurable loss. There are still people who are not convinced? Niu Ben's god glanced at Marquis Shui and a few other stubborn people who were still standing behind Purple Marquis and shouted, "Stubborn? Blockhead? Stupid humans! Do you really think you can resist Mr. Jiang's strength? Mr. Jiang has the strength of a void return saint. He can even kill the abyssal demon dragon. Do you think your battle formation can stop him?" Niu Ben's god spoke harshly and his eyes were disdainful. "What? He even killed the abyssal devil dragon. This is an ancient magic dragon." Everyone was shocked when they heard this. They didn't dare to believe it. If they were only shocked when they saw Niu Ben being intimidated by Jiang Tian, then at this moment, they were scared out of their wits and couldn't stand still. How is this possible? The remaining vassals were so scared that they couldn't stop trembling, and their fighting spirit had completely disappeared. Even the most stubborn and resolute of vassals had their will to fight crumbled in an instant, not daring to oppose Jiang Tian. Everyone should have heard of the black gold true dragon halberd. Jiang Tian took out the halberd and played with it for a while. The torrential pressure of a supreme quality sacred artifact was unleashed, shaking the heavens and shaking the earth. It made it difficult for the vassals to breathe, suffocating them. Their bones rumbled as if they were about to shatter and their souls were about to split apart. The golden true dragon halberd appeared. This immediately caused all the doubts to collapse on their own. It also completely shattered the last bit of hope in the hearts of the lords. It's true. He really killed the abyssal demonic dragon. The remaining vassals were as pale as paper and trembled. The morale of the army was shattered. Coupled with the pressure of the sacred artifact, the essence chi and forbidden regions of the golden core and nascent soul cultivators were shattered and retracted. Many battle formations were instantly defeated and on the verge of collapse. As the Dharma power of the battle formations disappeared, the Dharma forms and domains of the vassals were destroyed one after another. Their aura and combat strength fell again and again like a receding tide. "Kneel down and admit your mistakes." Niu Ben's deity shouted loudly, acting high and mighty. "Do you really think that Mr. Jiang can't kill you? Your so-called battle formations can't even withstand a single blow in Mr. Jiang's hands. He's just merciful and cherishes the lives of these cultivator soldiers. That's why he's talking so much nonsense with all of you. Otherwise, he would have already slapped all of you to death like swatting flies. Mr. Jiang, we know our mistakes. Please, Mr. Jiang, show mercy and forgive us for offending you." Marquis Qingshan and Huang Zhenting greet Saint Siqing. Marquis Red Flower and Yi Songliang greet Saint. "Congratulations to Saint for killing the demonic dragon and obtaining the sacred artifact. You've established your might." Marquises and divine lords rushed over from all directions like a tide and bowed as if they had seen a deity. They were respectful, fearful, and devout. Actually, Niu Ben's words were not exaggerated. Although decimating abyss was at the soul formation realm, his bloodline was special. Coupled with the supreme-grade sacred artifact in his hand, his strength was close to that of a void-return sage. Jiang Tian could even kill him. Destroying battle formations and killing vassals was really a piece of cake. "Saint, I've really been deceived by the purple-robed Marquis. From the first day I saw you, I felt that you were talented and extraordinary. One day, you'll definitely reach the peak and become a Dao ancestor, looking down on this continent. I've been waiting for this day and night. Today, I've finally gotten what I wanted. I'm really excited." The Marquis of Shanshui flew over in a panic and knelt at Jiang Tian's feet. He hugged Jiang Tian's calf with both hands and started crying loudly. "Scram! Don't dirty my clothes!" Jiang Tian scolded. His true essence surged and sent the Marquis of Shanshui flying. "I was too excited. Sir, please don't be angry. My family has some money and it's enough to buy a few Taoist robes. Sir, if you need it, you can take it as you wish." The Marquis of Shanshui climbed up pathetically. He looked embarrassed but was still full of joy. He praised Jiang Tian incessantly. The purple-robed Marquis is ambitious and disloyal. He stirred up trouble time and time again, trying to harm Saint Siqing, the Zhenyuan Marquis, the Lin family, and the Empire. I can't wait to get rid of him every day. I only hate that my cultivation is too low and I'm too weak too. Marquis of Shanshui, why do I remember that you supported the purple-robed Marquis the most and hated Saint Siqing the most? The Marquis of Qingshan, Huang Jinting, said. Nonsense. I collected evidence in order to preserve my strength and win the trust of the purple-robed Marquis. Spy, do you understand? I am the spy of Saint Siqing. I was waiting for the saint to explode so that I could rise up and serve the saint. The purple-robed Marquis and I can't live under the same sky. Don't stop me. Today I will fight 300 rounds with him. The Marquis of Shanshui glared at purple-robed Marquis and said righteously. He put on a posture of fighting to the death with the purple-robed Marquis. At this moment, the purple-robed Marquis could no longer bear it. His expression changed rapidly. Disappointment, anger, unwillingness, resentment, and in the end, it all turned into endless despair and regret. He fell to his knees and begged for mercy. Saint, this old man knows his mistake. Please have mercy, princess, spare this sinner's life. This old man is willing to commit suicide to thank the world. At this moment, the purple-robed Marquis really thoroughly regretted. Chapter 1953. Purple Marquis had always thought that he was the one who benefited the most from this battle. He would use the pantheon of demons to crush the feudal lords, eliminate the Dongfang royal family, and ascend to the throne of the emperor, overlooking the world and standing at the peak. When the day came for him to ascend to the throne, the resources under his control would be no small matter, and he would have many bargaining chips to exchange with the divine sects and sacred grounds. It was another matter if he would still regard the pantheon of demons as the national religion and respect the sect leader as the leader as he had promised. Although the pantheon of demons was powerful, it was still a demon force after all, and was regarded as an enemy by the human orthodoxies. Moreover, its strength was much weaker than the divine sects of the sacred grounds. When the time came, he could use the conflict between humans and demons to persuade the leaders of the divine sects of the sacred grounds to kill the pantheon of demons. It would not be difficult. However, he did not expect Demon Emperor Han Guang to be his mortal enemy, Dongfang Jie. He was just a troublemaker used by Dongfang Jie. When the birds are gone, the bow is put away, and the hound is cooked. Purple Marquis certainly understood this. The day he overthrew the Dongfang royal family was also the day he died. This already made him extremely sad. However, what made him feel even more sorrowful was Jiang Tian's strength. He was unexpectedly strong. Purple Marquis had also realized how powerful Jiang Tian was, which was why he chose to assassinate Lin Hanqing and destroy the Zhenyuan Ho family first. He wanted Jiang Tian to become a duckweed without any backing, and then he would gather enough strength to kill him. However, he had never imagined that Jiang Tian, a rogue cultivator from outside the river who came from a remote and desolate place, would actually be powerful to such an extent. The pantheon of demons had so many soul formation grand cultivators, who could be considered peerless giants, but none of them succeeded. This kind of peerless killing situation was resolved by Jiang Tian. How can there be such a person in the human world? He must be the reincarnation of an immortal. Purple Marquis sadly realized that he had chosen the wrong opponent. It was not that he had chosen the wrong Zhenyuan Ho, but that Zhenyuan Ho had Jiang Tian by his side. If he had a chance to choose again, no matter how the pantheon of demons tried to bewitch him, he would never choose to start a bloodbath and eliminate Zhenyuan Ho. Among the marquises, he could already be considered powerful. His son, Zi Yunxiao's talent and cultivation were decent as well. 3 generations of prosperity meant 10 generations would not be a problem. However, because of his ambition and his underestimation of the enemy, everything was lost. At this moment, he didn't dare to continue fighting, because even a peerless giant like Niu Ben and an ancient monster like the Decimating Abyss weren't a match for Jiang Tian, so he was even less of a match. Stubbornly resisting would only lead to death. If he surrendered and begged for mercy with a sincere attitude, he might have a chance of survival. Spare your life? Give me a reason. Jiang Tian sneered. He stepped into the void, his posture graceful and otherworldly. He approached Purple Marquis step by step as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. His aura was vast, majestic, and divine, causing Purple Marquis' heart to palpitate. I know everything about the pantheon of demons, including the troop arrangements, the traps, and the barriers, as well as the shortcomings of the cultivation arts of the great demons. I only beg for Saint to spare my life. I am willing to tell you the truth. The pantheon of demons is the Empire's mortal enemy, and Saint must eliminate it. I need this information. Seeing that Jiang Tian had no intention of letting him go, Purple Marquis pleaded. I once went deep into the critical canyon and saw an ancient treasure that seemed to contain rare treasures. Only I know the route. His mind spun at lightning speed, and many thoughts came one after another. He was extremely wealthy, and his cultivation resources were as vast as the sea, but they would soon be confiscated. Jiang Tian was completely at his mercy. Moreover, although Jiang Tian was at the nascent soul realm, he had the strength of a void return saint. To be honest, although he had a lot of resources, none of them were useful to a void return saint. He had many cultivation manuals, many of which were even on par with the imperial family's Eastern Rising Purple Qi. However, for Jiang Tian to reach such a realm, his cultivation arts were probably of an even higher level, and he didn't care about these at all. It was as if this was the only bargaining chip he had. You don't know as much as I do. Jiang Tian didn't say anything and slapped down with his palm. This palm was like the palm of a Buddha. It was incomparably heavy, as if it could crush the world and destroy the stars. In Purple Marquis' perception, the entire world was rapidly disappearing. Patches of darkness formed a pure black background. In the universe, only Jiang Tian, who stood tall like a Buddha, and that palm that seemed to fill the heavens and earth, was left. The palm formed a supreme domain that froze matter, vitality, laws, and even the great Tao. I can't escape it all. Sigh, it's all my fault for being blind. Purple Marquis wailed in his heart. In the eyes of everyone, he didn't struggle at all and just knelt on the spot. Even his physical body, God, and even his spirit were crushed by Jiang Tian's palm. The space seemed to be as thin as a cicada's wing. Crystal clear broken bones flew everywhere, and divine blood filled with surging essence and vast laws surged in the sky. The fluctuations of laws shook heaven and earth, triggering bursts of thunder. The might of a saint is unparalleled. We admit defeat. We admire you. Many marquises were so scared that they curled up and knelt on the ground like quails in the cold wind. Their faces were as pale as paper, without a trace of blood. Jiang Tian's palm just now was as easy as swatting a fly, but the mysteries it contained were endless and extremely profound. Even a soul formation cultivator couldn't resist it. Oh my God! Marquis Shanshui wasn't far away. He only felt that his head and face were covered in blood and flesh, and there was a faint burning feeling, which was caused by the remaining vitality and laws. He touched his sticky hair and found an eyeball surrounded by laws and surging vitality. It was connected to meridians, flesh, and blood. I died so miserably. The eyeball blinked and emitted a vague sound, mournful and resentful. Soul formation grand cultivators were powerful. They could be reborn from a drop of blood and have billions of clones. This eyeball contained Purple Marquis' bloodline and divine soul, which gave birth to an angry spirit. Oh my God! Marquis Shanshui was so scared that his eyes rolled back and he immediately fainted. His eyes rolled back and kept twitching as if he had been electrocuted. White foam came out of his mouth with a hint of green. He was so scared that his courage was gone. Jiang Tian had been bullied by Li Ludao many times in his previous life, so he hated the Marquis Shanshui's family. But then, Li Ludao's power was destroyed and Marquis Shanshui was so frightened. Jiang Tian suddenly felt relieved, or rather, he didn't want to argue with Marquis Shanshui anymore. It was like when you went back to kindergarten and faced the bully who bullied you in kindergarten, you would only find it funny, but not arouse hatred. Marquis Shanshui didn't know that he had avoided a disaster in a flash by passing out. Go to hell. The next moment, Jiang Tian looked away and thought. Instantly, strands of law of annihilation began to spread along Purple Marquis' body inch by inch. Even his broken bones, divine blood, and even fragments of his soul were all burned to ashes, completely vanishing from this world and turning into nothingness. One of the top 10 cultivators of the empire, Shinhigu, the Marquis of Purple Marquis, was dead. "Saint, we surrender." Purple Marquis's army collapsed. Many Golden Core warriors knelt in the sky and didn't have the slightest intention to resist. Dead. Then, a scream came from the army. It was Purple Marquis's son. Xianxiao saw his father completely die and screamed, "Jiang Siqing, if I return to the peak, I swear I'll kill you." Chapter 1954. A cold glint flashed through Jiang Tian's eyes. The Purple Marquis was ambitious and had committed countless sins. Be it Shinhigu or Xianxiao, all of them had committed unspeakable sins. No matter how many times they died, they would not be able to wash away their sins. Even though Xianxiao's cultivation was crippled, his killing intent was still the same. Jiang Tian was not a kind person, and he would not be soft-hearted and soft-hearted. Since he was going to cut the grass, he had to remove the roots to prevent it from growing again. Not only did he have to kill Xianxiao, the Purple Marquis bloodline would be cursed to death as well. "It's your turn." "You swore to kill me?" "Xianxiao, you can reincarnate 10 more times." Jiang Tian smiled coldly and his deep eyes were emotionless. His sleeves fluttered and he opened his right hand, about to grab Xianxiao. "Heavens! I can't accept this." Xianxiao shrieked tragically and howled into the sky. Tears streamed down his face and his handsome face was contorted with hatred and resentment. At that moment, the generals and cultivators under the Purple Marquis did not move and would not help him. The feudal lords watched on with cold eyes. Compared to the conflict between humans and demons, the struggle between the feudal lords and the royal family was not worth mentioning. The Purple Marquis had colluded with the demons to overthrow the Eastern dynasty. Wouldn't the pantheon of demons and their former mortal enemy, Dongfang Jie, benefit? If the demons made a comeback, wouldn't they be the ones to suffer? "Jiang Siqing, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost." Xianxiao roared furiously. He was one of the top geniuses of the empire who had reached the nascent soul realm at a young age. He had the chance to follow his father to kill the tyrannical and fatuous ruler and inherit the empire as the crown prince and emperor. There might even be a day when he could expand his territory and become the overlord of this continent, achieving immortal feats. But now, he was at the end of his rope and everything was destroyed. Suddenly, a rain of flowers fell around Xianxiao. The petals were translucent, extremely beautiful and moving. These petals quickly spread out, forming countless runes that formed a huge talisman. It was like a barrier that protected Xianxiao in the middle. Bang! The azure-binding dragon law that Jiang Tian struck out with his palm was actually blocked by this flower rain talisman. Although the flower rain barrier rippled a little under the immense force of the palm, it was incomparably tough and quickly recovered. A vast sacred and otherworldly aura slowly descended from the rain of flowers. It was as if the person who cast the spell was incomparably noble and untainted by the mortal world. For you, blooming flowers with a single thought, the sovereign descends upon the world. Could it be? Grand Princess Mou's expression suddenly became incomparably solemn as she looked at the rain of flowers. Luoying sect. Jiang Tian could feel a surge of vitality from the rain of flowers rune. It was a rich wood attribute aura, as if it was the beginning of the world. His heart trembled and his eyes flashed. The Luoying sect was proficient in wood elemental cultivation arts and had created a world of its own. It had several void-returning saints and soul formation cultivators and was one of the top 5 sects in the divine origin world. It was comparable to the ancient medicine hall. This rain of flowers rune was at the level of a peak Dao artifact. With Jiang Tian's current strength, he could definitely break it with an all-out attack. However, Jiang Tian did not act rashly. Because the sect's daughter, Lian Huahun. She was the person who brought Huang Linger from Earth to the divine origin world. When Jiang Tian returned to the divine origin world and took Huang Linger away, he would probably need to obtain Lian Huahun's permission. Therefore, Jiang Tian naturally did not want to offend her. Zi Yunxiao knew that he had just escaped death. His clear eyes shot out rays of disbelief, and his handsome face was also filled with ecstasy. He knew that he was saved. Reinforcements had arrived. At this moment, the horizon lit up with multicolored, ever-changing rays of light. It was so beautiful that no one dared to look directly at it. If one looked carefully, they would discover that the specks of light that made up this multicolored light were all made up of sparkling and translucent flower petals. The multicolored light elongated, as if it was a bridge. A long rainbow spread out in the sky. Two graceful women stepped on the bridge that was paved with beautiful flower petals, gracefully walking over. One of the women was dressed in a white dress that was not tainted by a speck of dust. She floated like an immortal, and her age was around 20 years old. Her facial features were exquisite, and her eyes were filled with a spring smile. She was otherworldly, and carried a hint of flirtatious charm. Her figure was exquisite, and her chest was high, almost bursting out of her clothes. Her waist was slender, as if it could be grasped with one's hand. Especially her pair of beautiful legs that were long and straight. Looking at her pair of eyes that seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life, it was obvious that her actual lifespan far exceeded her appearance. The other woman was dressed in a green dress. On the surface, she looked a little younger, as if she was only 17 or 18 years old. Her face was young, and she had a pair of peach blossom eyes. She looked like a little sister next door, gentle and amiable. The right side of the two women's clothes were embroidered with fallen flowers. The sleeves of their dresses were also embroidered with flowers and plants. It was extremely exquisite, and there was a natural charm to it. When Zi Yunxiao saw the embroidery, he was instantly overjoyed. "Fairies, are you two experts from the Luoying sect?" "Yes, we are the disciples of Grand Elder Zi Qianma." The older woman smiled faintly and said casually, "You must be Zi Yunxiao." "Ancestor Qianma, she actually still remembers the Shen family." Zi Yunxiao's face was filled with ecstasy. "So the Shen family's roots are so deep. Zi Qianma is actually their ancestor." As for Jiang Tian, his expression froze, and thoughts came one after another. But why didn't Zi Qianma stand up when the Purple Marquis family was destroyed in my previous life? Yes, this is because of her personality and the Luoying sect's motto. Cherish the common people, treat everyone equally, and do not discriminate between each other. Love with impartiality and non-aggression. Great love is also not love. In her eyes, the Shen family is no different from the Dongfang royal family. In fact, they are no different from ordinary people, strangers, and plants. Zi Qianma was the wife of the founding ancestor of the Purple Marquis family. Thousands of years ago, the founding ancestor held Zi Qianma's hand and followed the founding ancestor of the Dongfang royal family to open up new territories. They conquered this beautiful land and became a legend. Zi Qianma was obsessed with cultivation and did not like the affairs of the common people. She had always wanted to leave the common people and join a hidden sect. However, at that time, the land had just been settled and she still needed to suppress it. Thus, she guarded it for 500 years. When the Shen family's ancestor failed to break through to the Void Return realm, his lifespan was exhausted, and he passed away. Zi Qianma finally severed her karma and left the Purple Marquis residence. She entered Buddhism and joined the Luoying sect. The Luoying sect was a hidden sect and walked the path of Buddhist cultivation. They loved all living things and treated everyone equally. They did not discriminate between family and distance. They were otherworldly and tranquil. Zi Qianma considered herself a monk and cut off all contact with the Shen family. They had not contacted each other for more than 2,000 years. However, Zi Qianma was indeed a talented person. She was not inferior to men and had once conquered the world. More than half of the Shen family's cultivation techniques were created by Zi Qianma. She had also reached the Void Return realm 1,000 years ago. She was one of the top 3 leaders of the Luoying sect. Among all the leaders of the sacred grounds and divine sects, she could also be ranked in the top 20. Therefore, in order to commemorate Zi Qianma's contribution to the Dongfang Empire and the Shen family, The Purple Marquis family had the surname Shin and Zi under the special permission of the royal family. This was also the reason why Zi Yunxiao's surname was Zi. This kind of thing was unique in the entire Saint Origin world. It was also a legend and a legend. However, Zi Qianma's 2 disciples won't just stand by and watch if I kill Zi Yunxiao in front of them. Jiang Tian flicked his fingers and thought to himself. Chapter 1955. The next moment, Zi Yunxiao asked excitedly, "May I know the names of the 2 fairies?" It was as if he had seen his saviors and relatives. After all, the Luoying sect was too strong, only slightly inferior to the ancient medicine hall. They had several real saints of void return, which could completely suppress Jiang Tian. My name is Hua Xiangrong. I'm one of the top 10 disciples of Saint Qianma. The older and charming woman said with a smile. According to seniority, I should call you ancestor. But you're so young and beautiful, I really can't. Zi Yunxiao rolled his eyes and pretended to be shy and embarrassed. Young Duke, you must be joking. I'm already 500 years old. Beauty is just a physical appearance, not worth mentioning. This is Su Xiaotang. She's also my junior sister apprentice. Hua Xiangrong had been practicing abstinence for many years, so she couldn't stand this kind of teasing. She immediately blushed and covered her mouth to laugh. Zi Yunxiao's mouth was dry, and the pain of his father's death had long been forgotten. Another ancestor. Zi Yunxiao continued to tease and put on airs. With a troubled expression, he said, "But looking at his age, he's clearly younger than me. He's more like a younger sister." Younger sister? You're so bold to say that. Offending your superiors and not following the rules. Su Xiaoting frowned and shouted, but anyone could hear the coquettish tone in her words. It didn't sound like she was talking to a junior, but a big brother she admired. She was 30% innocent, 30% coquettish, and 30% seductive. We're here this time because our master heard that you're likely to reach the divine transformation realm, so he specially ordered us to take you to the sect to practice abstinence for a few days. Buddhism is peaceful, and many Buddhist chants can expel external demons and calm your mind, which will help you to increase the probability of reaching the divine transformation realm. After entering the sect, Su Xiaotang will guide you. You can call her junior martial aunt Su. Don't underestimate her, she's already at the middle stage of the divine transformation realm. Hua Xiangrong coughed and said in a dignified and noble manner, "Seniors, thank you for your kindness in cultivating me," but Zi Yunxiao was deeply grateful. Then, he feigned fear as he looked at Jiang Tian. Hua Xiangrong frowned, looked at Jiang Tian and said, "Mister, who are you? Do you have any deep hatred with the Shen family? Why did you kill the Shen clan?" Jiang Tian said casually, "Shen Higu and his son, Marquis of Purple Robe, were ambitious, disloyal. They bullied their peers and stole the resources of their fiefs. They even colluded with a divinity transformation stage expert of the pantheon of demons in an attempt to assassinate Marquis Zhenyuan Lin Hanqing. They wanted to raise a storm of blood on this land, overturn the royal family of the East, and claim the throne of the Imperium. As an elite disciple of a secluded sect, Hua Xiangrong was high and mighty. How could she care about a tiny place like the Eastern Empire? She did not know much about the conflict in the Eastern Empire, so she frowned when she heard this. She quickly communicated with Su Xiaotang and Zi Yunxiao using her consciousness. Especially after learning about Jiang Tian's achievements, Hua Xiangrong's face became even more dignified. After learning about the general situation, Hua Xiangrong's charming face became serious. Then, she sighed and said, "When I sweep the floor, I am afraid of hurting the lives of ants." Zi Yunxiao, the most beautiful thing in this world is life. It is the grass and the trees in this world. As for power and fame, they are all worldly possessions, like floating clouds. You are blinded by greed and power. You can't see that power and wealth are poisonous snakes and fierce beasts that harm people. You pursued them and fought desperately for them. Now you have harmed your own lives. Do you know that you are wrong? Senior, I know that I am wrong. I have sinned deeply. Zi Yunxiao prostrated himself at her feet, hugging her slender, white feet. He rubbed his head against hers and pretended to cry bitterly. If I can survive this calamity, I will definitely make up for it properly and take it upon myself to save the world. Hua Xiangrong nodded with satisfaction. Then she bowed to Jiang Tian and said with a smile, Saint Siqing, I am a woman with limited experience and don't know much about the disputes of the secular world. But since Lin Hanqing's family is still alive, they did not suffer much loss. Purple Marquis's plan did not succeed. You have killed Purple Marquis, which can be considered as revenge. As for Zi Yunxiao, you have seen that he already knows that he is wrong. Please be merciful. Sigh, it is also because our Luoying sect is far away from the secular world. We do not teach the Purple Marquis's family and do not teach them. That is why they made a mistake that caused everlasting regret. Please hand him over to me and bring him back to the sect. Discipline him strictly every day and enlighten him. Let him have a clear heart and few desires, stand aloof from worldly affairs, and not dare to do evil again. You know, Purple Marquis and Ziyunxiao planned this operation. How many people died? Mrs. Lin's family was wiped out. The Lin family also lost more than 1,200 cultivators, guards, and soldiers. And when Maple City was attacked by the powerful demons, tens of thousands of people died. Are they not people in the eyes of your Luoying sect? Jiang Tian laughed coldly and questioned, just by strictly disciplining them, would these people have died for nothing? Hua Xiangrong sighed regretfully and said, the dead are already gone, and Ziyunxiao is still a living creature. How can you harm a life just to appease the anger in your heart? Our Luoying sect will hold a water and land assembly here to release the wronged people and let them enter the pure land. Zi Yunxiao will also use his useful body to do good deeds and make up for his sins. Isn't this good to just kill him? How do you know he will become a good person and do good deeds? Jiang Tian was so angry that he laughed. He had never seen such a hypocritical pope. He seemed to be high and above the common people, but in fact he did not know the suffering of the common people. He seemed to love the world without boundaries, but in fact he was heartless, unprincipled, generous, and fishing for fame. It was simply ridiculous. Bad people did all kinds of evil things, but as long as they put down the butcher's knife, they could become Buddhas. One sentence, I was wrong, could wash away all sins. If you have the guts, when others kill your father, you can also say, the dead are already gone, don't look into it. Senior Jiang, I know I was wrong. Please let me off this time. Zi Yunxiao was like a pug, lying at Zi Hua Xiangrong's feet, his chin propped on the graceful lines of her legs. The hard stubble gave this woman a subtle touch. Her heart and calves were the same, numb like electricity, eroding her bones and her soul. You're begging me? Jiang Tian smiled faintly. You also saw, he's begging you, and his attitude is so sincere. He's even crying. Obviously, he has deeply realized his mistake. People should have the virtue of caring for all living things. Just forgive him this time, just let him go this time. Next to him, Su Xiaotang also looked at Ziyunxiao sympathetically. It would be a pity if such a beautiful young man was killed. He's begging me, so the decision is naturally mine. What if I don't agree? Jiang Tian said with a smile. Our Luoying sect benefits the common people and has the virtue of caring for all living things. If you don't want to kill him, then we can only act to uphold justice. Hua Xiangrong's pretty face turned cold. Chapter 1956. Su Xiaoting puffed out her proud chest and said in a cold voice, Ignorant fool. Do you think you are qualified to challenge the Luoying sect behind us just because you killed a few divine transformation realm mighty figures by chance? Su Xiaotang was at the middle stage of the divine transformation realm, while Hua Xiangrong was at the peak stage of the divine transformation realm. Their realms were far higher than Jiang Tian's. According to Jiang Tian's record, he could even kill a peerless demon dragon like the Decimating Abyss and easily suppress a giant like Niu Ben, who was almost a half-saint. Even if they joined forces, they were no match for Jiang Tian. However, what made them fearless was the sects behind them. The Luoying sect. Standing at the top of this continent, How many people dared to challenge them? How many people were qualified to challenge them? Benefit the common people and cherish the virtue of living? How dare you say that? Jiang Tian laughed again. His eyes were filled with disdain as he said with disdain, "Sects and forces enjoy the resources of the world and the support of all living beings. They should really maintain the peace of the world and benefit the common people. Look at your faces, hypocritical, greedy, arrogant, overbearing. I want to ask, when the residence of Marquis Jinyuan was killed, where were you? When Marquis Purple Robe took advantage of the good and bullied the good, where were you? When the pantheon of demons looted the cities and harassed the common people, blood flowed like rivers, and people were plunged into misery and suffering, where were you? In fact, you did everything based on your likes and dislikes. Which one of you is worthy of being called a disciple of a sect?" Jiang Tian questioned. What did you say? The power of a sect is limited. How can we take care of everything? Besides, we are quiet and inactive. We believe in equality of all living beings. Su Xiaotang was dumbfounded and speechless. Hua Xiangrong also looked embarrassed and angry. All living beings are equal and detached from worldly affairs. So, when evil people kill good people, you can turn a blind eye to it. Because the common people are neither good nor evil, neither far nor near, neither high nor low. In your heart they are all ants. The life and death of ants have nothing to do with you. However, when you see the ants you like being crushed to death, you will also save them. Jiang Tian mocked. Great love has no love, no distance, no difference in status, and no difference in status. It treats all living beings in the world equally. You make it sound nice, but you can't do it. This young man has red lips and white teeth, you will like him. He will also lower himself, greatly satisfying your lofty and arrogant vanity. You will be more comfortable. I'm the same as you. Those who are kind to me are good, and those who are evil. But at the very least, I'm not as hypocritical as you, talking about the world and the common people. Humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires. It's normal to be close and distant. But we can't forget the most basic principles and morals just because of these feelings and distort the truth. Old man, you're spouting nonsense. Su Xiaotang snorted unreasonably. Jiang Tian didn't pay any attention to him. He just raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. Zi Yunxiao felt as if the space around him had turned into a cage, trapping him within. Before he could let out a cry of surprise, even his physical body, nascent soul, and divine soul were directly crushed into meat paste by layers of void power and supreme domain. Jiang Xiqing, how dare you? Only a wisp of remnant thought was left floating in the air unwillingly. Some of them were in disbelief, while others were horrified. Jiang Xiqing dared to not give face to Saint Qianma. Not giving face to Saint Qianma was not giving face to the Luoying sect. Not only did Zi Yunxiao not expect it, but in fact, the Duke and Princess Mou also didn't expect it. Everyone's face was full of endless shock. Jiang Tian was too powerful, and his will was as strong as steel. It seemed that even the gods and Buddhas in the sky couldn't stop him. Hua Xiangrong and Su Xiaotang were too slow to stop him. In other words, even if they joined forces to stop him in time, they might not be able to stop Jiang Tian at all. Hua Xiangrong's heart was in turmoil, and anger appeared in her eyes. She said coldly, "Fellow cultivator Jiang, you are too cruel. You have no mercy at all. Zi Yunxiao has passed away. I will do a few more water and land rituals for him and recite a few more scriptures to release his soul from purgatory. In the future, if I do good deeds, I can make up for this killing. Do you have the same mercy?" Jiang Tian chuckled and replied with their words just now. Hua Xiangrong was so angry that her pink face turned pale. For a moment she was tongue-tied and speechless. How dare you kill in front of the disciples of our Luoying sect? Su Xiaoying was so angry that her full chest was violently shaking, and a dazzling wave was rippling. A pair of clear and beautiful eyes stared at Jiang Tian angrily. She waved her right hand and took out a bronze mirror shining with golden light, as if she was about to attack. "Fellow cultivator Su, are you going to punish me or even kill me? Have you forgotten what you just said? How can you take revenge on a fresh life for the dead? His life is a life. Could it be that in your eyes, my life is not a life? Jiang Tian said with a smile. Fellow cultivator Jiang, you are too murderous and like to use violence to curb violence. You'd better go back to the Luoying sect with me and reflect on your mistakes for 100 years. You can feel the natural beauty of flowers and plants and purify your killing intent and devil chi, so as to avoid mental disorder and making a big mistake that will endanger the world. By then it will be too late to regret. Hua Xiangrong gently pressed her right hand to stop Su Xiaotang, and then she chanted Buddha's name and said in a low voice. Fellow cultivator Hua, you are wrong. Jiang Tian shook his head and smiled. He waved his sleeve, and Lin Yang, the little princess, and many palace guards flew out of his sleeve and landed on the city wall. He said calmly, "Look, how many people have I saved? If I hadn't arrived in time, Marquis Purple Robe would have rebelled, and no one in the elder princess's palace would be left alive." He put his left hand behind his back and raised his right hand to point at the army formations. His posture was indescribably carefree, and he said with a leisurely smile, "If I hadn't exposed the truth that Marquis Purple Robe colluded with the pantheon of demons, a war would have broken out. These hundreds of thousands of people in the army formations would have been reduced to bones and dust, and many orphans and widows would have been left behind. As the saying goes, saving a life is better than building a 7-floor pagoda. I have saved so many people, and I don't know how many pagodas are behind me to dispel my killing intent. Why would I need to face the wall?" Jiang Tian was unperturbed. His expression was that of a charlatan, but to the crowd, his words were indeed reasonable. Jiang Tian's strength was comparable to that of a saint of void return, and he could fight head-on with Marquis Purple Robe and the army of the southern feudal lords. However, Jiang Tian instead earnestly advised, exposing the scheme within, all for the sake of saving these cultivator soldiers, avoiding unnecessary casualties. And Jiang Tian did do it. "You are twisting words and forcing logic." Su Xiaotang's pretty face turned cold. She raised her right hand, and the mirror spun like a flying saucer, broke through the space at an unparalleled speed, and covered Jiang Tian's head at an incredible angle. The bone-melting earth mirror. Seeing this treasure, many people exclaimed, and their faces changed drastically. Chapter 1957. The hidden sects were superior and they didn't care about the affairs of the mortal world. But the mortal world was more cautious when it came to the hidden sections. They studied and studied them carefully, both to learn and to be cautious. That mirror was a sacred weapon, the Dharma treasure that Zi Qianmo used to become famous. Saint Qianmo was worried that her 2 disciples wouldn't have enough experience, so she lent it to Su Xiaoting. That treasure was both offensive and defensive. It was powerful and unpredictable. Once it shone, Dharma laws would be melted and grand Taos would be annihilated. Both the deities and their bodies would be shattered. Countless soul formation grand cultivators had died under that mirror in the past thousands of years. Even saints would have to be careful when they saw it. "That woman is so vicious. Brother Jiang, you must be careful." Grand Princess Mou clenched her teeth and cried out in alarm. Her beautiful face turned pale as she wiped her sweat for Jiang Tian. Even though Jiang Tian was powerful, that treasure was also quite powerful. A battle between cultivators was ever-changing. A small mistake could lead to a great loss. No matter how powerful you were, you could still die when you encountered a powerful Dharma treasure and tricky attacks. In the blink of an eye, the bone-transforming earth mirror arrived above Jiang Tian. "Go to hell, you ant!" With a hateful roar, Su Xiaotang formed a hand seal and activated the treasure. On the other hand, this treasure suddenly emitted millions upon millions of strands of light. It was gorgeous, resplendent, and filled with danger. The dazzling light made the real sun in the sky lose its splendor. There seemed to be a sun rising in the sky. The light was so bright that everyone was blinded for a moment and even their immortal will was cut off. Many soldiers immediately raised shields that were at the level of a true artifact. They connected together and some were even Dao artifacts to resist the terrifying light. The many sharp beams of light in the mirror seemed material, incomparably sharp. They cut through the laws, pierced through the great Tao, and tore through space. When they shone down, they wanted to completely melt Jiang Tian. In just the blink of an eye, the true treasures and even Tao treasures raised by the army began to crack under the terrifying killing intent. Some even melted, and all of their magic power dissipated. Ah! Retreat! Ouch! Help! Under the furious cries of the dukes and generals, the army retreated like a tide, panicking like stray dogs. However, the mirror was too powerful, and Su Xiaotong's control was not good enough. She could not attack accurately, and the shockwaves were too wide. In an instant, tens of thousands of innocent people were implicated and died with deep unwillingness and fear. Many people's eyes were still wide open before they were annihilated, and their faces were still filled with astonishment. It was as if he couldn't believe that he had actually died at the hands of a disciple of the Luoying sect, who claimed to be a righteous sect and had saved the world. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. No one can escape from this mirror alive. However, at this moment, Su Xiaotang did not notice the deaths of these people. Her eyes were only fixed on Jiang Tian, who was about to be obliterated. Her lips curled into a maniacal smile. He only felt that he was extremely satisfied and delighted. Which cultivator didn't want to kill? With the dragon-slaying skill in his hands, how could his killing intent not be aroused? How many powerful cultivators didn't want to humiliate others? The rules of the sect were strict, and Saint Qianma's requirements for them were also extremely strict. They were not allowed to kill at will. This made Su Xiaoting even more depressed. All day long, she wanted to kill tens of thousands of people to vent her anger. However, if they wanted to kill people, they had to have a good reason and occupy the moral high ground. Now, she felt that she occupied a very high moral high ground. Very righteous. Even if Saint Qianma knew all this, she would not blame herself. Hua Xiangrong should be the same. Harming the innocent and treating human lives like grass. This is true love. This is true of a righteous sect. Bah. A trace of coldness flashed across Jiang Tian's eyes when he saw this scene. His expression was filled with disdain. A 30-foot-tall divine plate appeared behind him, and the vermilion bird divine rule shot out. The light and heat contained within the leaf fire essence was actually even more gorgeous and blazing than the light of the mirror. It caused the light to dim, and one could clearly see the complicated and mysterious symbols on it. Oh no! Junior sister, quickly take back the mirror. Feeling that the divine rule released by Jiang Tian was even more tenacious and condensed than the Dharma contained in the mirror, Hua Xiangrong turned pale and shouted to remind her. Take it back. Su Xiaotang did not dare to be negligent. She quickly made a gesture and wanted to take back the mirror. However, her speed was still far too inferior compared to Jiang Tian's. As Jiang Tian waved his fingers, the vermilion bird divine rule drew a strange curve, like the curve in Tai Chi, and accurately cut through the middle of the mirror. There was a clang, a sharp sound that made one's teeth ache. The treasure mirror was split in half from the middle. Numerous laws collapsed and scattered down millions of flames. It was like a meteor falling from the heavens. The true spirit of the fire phoenix within let out a sorrowful cry before it was brutally killed. This. What? His strength is so powerful. This mirror is a magic treasure that Saint Qianma had refined and used before. Everyone was shocked and couldn't believe it. The Dharma refined by Saint Qianma was no match for the power of his finger and palm. But Hua Xiangrong was more shocked. She was so scared that her legs were trembling, and her heart almost jumped out of her throat. It was too horrible. It could be said that since she started her cultivation, she had never met such a horrible cultivator. She had never even heard of such a horrible cultivator. The reason why refining weapons was a great knowledge was that the magic treasures refined by cultivators were generally more powerful than their own full-strength attack. The Dharma and magic skills that cultivators refined into magic treasures were all refined over a long period of time. Naturally, they were more condensed and terrifying. Although this mirror was a holy weapon used by Saint Qianma in the early days and was no longer used as a memorial, its attack was more powerful than the strength of an ordinary saint. It was extremely terrifying. However, it was shattered by the Dharma that Jiang Tian casually threw out. His strength was simply incredible. Compared with Jiang Tian, the so-called geniuses in the Holy Lands and Holy Clans were simply dregs. Junior sister apprentice, this is bad. We underestimated this person. Hua Xiangrong's heart was filled with regret. Her heart fell into the nine nether abyss. She felt cold all over and was extremely scared. When she heard about Jiang Tian's powerful battle record, although she was very shocked, she did not absolutely recognize Jiang Tian's strength. Although the abyss demon dragon was fierce in the ancient times, after all, it had not appeared in the world for thousands of years. No one knew its real strength. Perhaps it had been tortured to death by the demon imprisoning fairy jar. She also noticed a detail that was, before Jiang Tian attacked, the Nine Mysteries sect had been fighting fiercely with Niu Ben and others for a long time. Therefore, she was more inclined to believe that the Nine Mysteries sect severely injured Niu Ben, and Jiang Tian took advantage of it. In other words, the Nine Mysteries sect killed Niu Ben, and Jiang Tian just caught Niu Ben's severely injured god. In order to deter neighboring countries and reclusive sects, or to boost the morale of their own country, the secular empire often exaggerated and bluffed. Hua Xiangrong thought that Jiang Tian was the idol deliberately created by the empire. As for his real strength, it was only 1/10. She thought so and denied Jiang Tian's strength. Of course, she had her reasons. First, Jiang Tian was too young. At Jiang Tian's age, it was good enough that he could reach the elixir realm. Jiang Tian reached the Yuaning realm too quickly, which meant that his foundation was very unstable and the grade of his Yuaning realm was not high. Second, Jiang Tian was a rogue cultivator from an extragalactic galaxy. In a remote place, the inheritance of cultivation methods had always been inferior. But at this moment, she realized that the many rumors about Jiang Tian were absolutely true. Jiang Tian was even more powerful than the rumors. Killing them was just a snap of his fingers. He even had the qualification to challenge the Holy Lands and Holy Clans. Chapter 1958. However, Su Xiaotang did not realize the deep meaning of Hua Xiangrong's words. When she saw her master's precious treasure was broken, she was shocked, scared, and angry. Her plump chest heaved violently, and she raised her trembling hand, pointed at Jiang Tian, and shouted, You dare to break my master's magic weapon. My master will punish me severely. You're courting death. Ha! Don't worry, you won't be punished. Jiang Tian smiled lightly. With a flash, he appeared beside Su Xiaotang like a ghost. What are you talking about? Why won't I be punished? Unless you accompany me to the sect and have a good talk with my master. Su Xiaotang's tone suddenly softened. She lowered her head and blushed, looking a little bashful. Oh no, why did my junior sister apprentice fall in love with Jiang Xiqing at this time? He is a giant with unfathomable magical power, enough to destroy the world, and enough to massacre the Holy Land. He is a fierce man who kills without blinking and whose Taoist heart is as hard as iron. Hua Xiangrong was stunned. Indeed, Hua Xiangrong was right. At this time, Su Xiaotang actually had an idea about Jiang Tian and wanted to take Jiang Tian to the sect. When she first saw Jiang Tian, although he was extremely handsome, his hair was gray, his eyes were gloomy and sad, and his temperament was empty. He was not the kind of fresh young man full of vitality like the spring sunshine, so she did not take him seriously. But at this moment, when she was close to Jiang Tian, she found that Jiang Tian had a complex and moving temperament. Sometimes, he felt as if Jiang Tian had gone through the sorrows of the mortal world and regained his calm state of mind. He had seen through the truth of the sea of bitterness in life and still loved life. Sometimes, he was like a lofty immortal god that stood above the myriad of worlds and looked down on the billions of living beings. He was incomparably grand, noble, and unapproachable. Suddenly, he felt as if Jiang Tian was cruel, despicable, suspicious, greedy, lecherous. All sorts of negative traits, but they were incomparably real and filled with a primitive and wild charm. This complex temperament made her addicted. This strange charm made her heart beat faster. In a short period of time, she had already planned everything out. Jiang Tian was able to break the mirror with his finger, so he was definitely a genius among geniuses. His value was much higher than the mirror. Saint Qianma would definitely take him in as a disciple. Jiang Tian had killed her descendants and relatives. Logically speaking, she was bound to take revenge. However, Qianma was not an ordinary person. Saint Qianma was different from these people who were just bluffing. She had truly cultivated love with impartiality to the extreme. Love was like having no love, no relatives, no friends, no family, no friends. She was merciful and transcended the mortal world. He had long since severed his karma and ended his mortal bonds. Therefore, Saint Qianma would not blame Jiang Tian for killing the Purple Marquise branch. Once Jiang Tian joined the Luoying sect, she would be able to accompany him every day in the name of senior sister and guide him. With her beauty and gentleness, Jiang Tian would probably not be able to resist and would definitely become her Dao companion. Jiang Tian was extremely talented and might even become a sect master in the future. Wouldn't she be the sect master's wife then? Accompany your mother. How ridiculous! Jiang Tian complained bitterly and his brows furrowed. He did not know that Su Shaoting had thought of so many things in an instant. He only felt that her expression was strange and thought that she had some tricks up her sleeve. However, even if she did, Jiang Tian was not afraid at all. After all, his strength was there. In a flash, Jiang Tian's right hand shot out like lightning and grabbed the top of this woman's head. His 5 fingers were like sharp steel hooks and instantly pierced through her skull. Ah! Su Shaotang was dumbfounded. Endless shock and fear appeared on her pretty face. She never would have thought that Jiang Tian would actually be so unromantic, completely unmoved by her beauty and looks. She also did not expect that Jiang Tian would be so ruthless and kill her without mercy. Su Shaotang opened her mouth and screamed. Her pretty face was distorted and twitching. Her curvaceous body trembled crazily as if she had been struck by lightning. But she could not struggle. The domain created by Jiang Tian's supreme divine law was incomparably solid. Not only was she unable to break free, but even Hua Xiangrong's physical body and Dharma power were all imprisoned, unable to lend a helping hand. If I kill you, you will not be punished by your master. Jiang Tian's eyes were deep and cold, with a cold light, without a trace of emotion. Under the incredulous gaze of everyone, he grabbed her head and lifted it up unceremoniously. With a swish, blood splashed. The woman's spine, together with the divine treasure, was pulled out of her body. Jiang Xiqing, you are so vicious. The vitality of cultivators was far more vigorous than that of ordinary people, not to mention that Su Shaotang was a mighty figure in the God transformation realm. Her vitality was extremely tenacious, and her body did not die on the spot. Blood tears rolled down her beautiful eyes, and her pretty face was filled with endless fear and trembling. It was as if she was looking at a terrible devil who was cruel, bloodthirsty, indifferent, and took pleasure in killing, destruction, and degeneration. Go to hell. Without saying a word, Jiang Tian grabbed with his right hand, and that beautiful head shattered like a watermelon. Red and white things splashed in the air, like bright fireworks blooming, but also like an abstract painting that was randomly drawn, spreading out in the air. The Dharma surged, spreading along the spine and strangling. The next moment, her divine treasure and divine treasure were also shattered. Bang! Jiang Tian kicked her body away like a football. He tilted his head slightly, and his face was still as calm as still water. He looked at Hua Xiangrong and said in a lazy tone, if your master, Saint Qianma, or the Luoying sect want to avenge this disciple, just come to me. I'll be waiting. Seeing that Jiang Tian killed Su Shaotang, Hua Xiangrong still wanted to ask him a few questions. Was he not afraid of the revenge of the sect behind him? However, after hearing Jiang Tian's words, she also swallowed the words on the tip of her tongue. She did not dare to say anything. She bowed deeply and said, I know. I'll take my leave now. Jiang Siqing, you're in trouble. It was not until this moment that Elder Princess Mou stopped and said gloomily, Don't be afraid. Jiang Tian smiled indifferently and was not afraid. Since you're not afraid, why don't you eliminate the source of trouble? Looking at the escaping light that was gradually disappearing, Elder Princess Mou suddenly showed a trace of fierceness on her face. She was indeed the goddess of war of the empire. She was resolute and decisive. Stay, it's useful. Sometimes, an enemy is also useful. Jiang Tian smiled again, looking calm and unperturbed. Maple City. Palaces and houses collapsed. There were huge gully-like cracks on the ground. It was a mess. Many defensive arrays were all broken. In the air, there were still traces of the demon clan's invasion and the laws of war. Light and shadow filled the air, and thunder exploded. There was a great danger in the magnificence. However, armies had been stationed here. Sabers, spears, swords, and halberds were scattered everywhere, and the murderous aura was soaring to the sky. Even in the Red Rock Basin and Xianji Forest, there were many armies from the royal family's direct descendants and the armies of the feudal lords who supported the royal family. In the sky, there were also some cultivators, holding magic weapons, eliminating or absorbing the remaining laws. There were also cultivators who were proficient in elixirs and healing methods, treating those seriously injured cultivators and mortals. This was Crown Prince Dongfang Ding, who was ordered by the emperor to fight Marquis Zishan. The army was stationed in Maple City. On the site of the mansion of Marquis Jinyan, which had been razed to the ground, a brand new mansion had been built by the royal craftsmen. Moreover, the area was 3 times larger than the original. It was now used as a temporary command post for the army. After that, it would be the new mansion of Marquis Jinyan. Brother, you're so talented. You deserve to be the first talent of the empire. When Dongfang Li hurried over and saw such a scene, he could not help but sigh with emotion. Chapter 1959. The cultivators built defensive divine arrays, distributed resources, provided disaster relief, healed the wounded, and comforted the poor. The cultivators of the upper echelons mobilized the troops and arranged the troops in formations. Everything was done in an orderly manner. Moreover, the cultivator army was strictly disciplined and showed no signs of interfering with the secular world. In particular, among the vassals who came to rescue the king, not only was there the Duke of Nanhe and Fang Jinlong who were originally loyal to the empire, but there were also the Duke of Eastern Gorge, the Duke of Northern Gorge, and the Duke of Western Ridge. Especially the Duke of Eastern Gorge, who had been seriously injured in the battle on Hundred Flowers Peak a few days ago. Even though he had not recovered from his injuries, he still came with his troops. Dongfang Li sighed at his own inferiority. Dongfang Ding's ability was indeed far superior to his. If it wasn't for Mr. Zhang's sudden appearance, Big Brother would be the #1 genius of the empire. No one could suppress him. As Dongfang Li sighed with emotion, he also made some corrections in his heart. After reporting, Dongfang Li also came to a magnificent hall. He saw Dongfang Ding, who was surrounded by several vassals, standing in front of 1,000 miles water mirror with his hands behind his back. He was watching intently without blinking. On the surface of the water mirror, Jiang Tian's every move was displayed down to the tiniest detail. Mr. Jiang is facing an army of 100,000 alone? Seeing this scene, Dongfang Li's eyes were filled with shock and worry. He was worried for Jiang Tian. Brother, you're here? Dongfang Ding looked at him with a smile, and then smiled helplessly. Mr. Jiang is an expert. After meeting up with Duke Nan, he did not wait for me and the vassals to join up and went straight to Jianghan City. I hope he can turn the misfortune into a blessing and counterattack. Mr. Jiang's strength is not to be underestimated. I think he is not afraid of Purple Marquis and the others. Dongfang Li said with a forced smile, but his heart was uneasy and did not have much confidence. Facing such a vast and surging battle formation alone, even if Jiang Tian really had the strength of a void return saint, his chances of winning were slim. He is a rogue cultivator from outside the river and has not been in Saint Origin World for long. He probably does not know the terror of the Empire's battle formation. Our cultivations are far inferior to the Sacred Ground's divine sect. If we don't have a battle formation that gathers the strength of all living beings, how can we stand on this land and maintain our independence? If it wasn't for the power of the battle formation, we would have already become slaves of the divine sect. In fact, he was not the only one. Including Dongfang Ding and the four dukes, all the nobles and officials present felt that Jiang Tian's actions were too rash, too impetuous, and too arrogant. They would most likely be beaten to a pulp by the battle formation. So that Demon Emperor Hanguang is actually Dongfang Jie. Mr. Jiang actually captured Niu Ben's god alive and dug out such a shocking secret. He was obstinate and self-opinionated, unkind and unkind. The vassals had made great contributions to the establishment and development of the empire, but he went on a crusade against them, stirring up a storm of blood and plunging the people into misery and suffering. How foolish! He's not muddle-headed. He's ambitious, and his ambition has devoured his conscience. He caused chaos in the world. In the end, he himself was defeated like a landslide. He fled in panic and fell into the abyss. He allied himself with the demon race and became the laughingstock of the world. Serves him right. However, after hearing the secret from Jiang Tian's mouth, the vassals were all shocked. Then, they began to ridicule him in a strange manner. So the Demon Emperor Palace Lord Hanguang was the late emperor. Dongfang Ding sighed, and his expression changed rapidly. In the end, he fell into silence and indifference. No one knew what he was thinking. It's actually Dongfang Jie. The county system is far better than the feudal system. It's just that he was too hasty back then and didn't have the conditions. Dongfang Li sighed regretfully in his heart. However, they did not expect that Jiang Tian would disintegrate Purple Marquis's camp with just a few words. It could even be said that even the battle formation of Jianghan City, the foundation of Purple Marquis's rebel army, was disintegrated. In the end, even Purple Marquis himself knelt down and surrendered without a fight. Subduing the enemy without a fight. Amazing! Mr. Jiang is mighty. An eternal prodigy. With his glib tongue, he quelled a war and saved millions of people. Saved the living beings of the world from suffering. The soldiers under the vassals are also the good men of the empire. If this fierce battle really breaks out, who knows how many people will die? Won't it cause pain to those close to you and delight your enemies? Won't it cause the empire to decline and damage its lifeline? Mr. Jiang's ability is far beyond ours. We can only look up to him and worship him. Cries of surprise sounded one after another. Everyone was shocked and looked at the scene in the water mirror with ecstasy. Not all the vassals were staunch rebels like Purple Marquis, who were determined to overthrow the imperial power. Although there was a conflict between the imperial power and the vassals, they understood the principle that without the skin, the hair would not be able to attach. If a civil war broke out, many neighboring countries and even sects would want to destroy the Eastern Empire and get a share of the pie. If the country was ruined, the vassals' fiefs and titles would be like bubbles in their dreams. They would have no foundation at all. Mr. Jiang is a genius, as expected of a man with a great reputation. Even Dongfang Ding was impressed. This battle is really beautiful. We should hold a grand ceremony and celebrate with the whole country. However, when Jiang Tian was about to raise his hand to kill Ziyunshao, when everyone thought that the battle was about to come to an end and a perfect end, to everyone's surprise, Hua Xiangrong and the other girl from the Luoying sect suddenly appeared. Side issues were arising. That's the Luoying sect. Mr. Jiang, you must not act rashly. After figuring out the other party's identity, Dongfang Ding was also shocked. The Luoying sect was one of the top holy sects, and he did not want to offend them at all. He hurriedly transmitted a message to Jiang Tian with a Dharma artifact, hoping that Jiang Tian would stop. When Fang Jinlong met up with Jiang Tian immediately said that he wanted to go to Jianghan City to kill Purple Marquis. Although Fang Jinlong felt that it was inappropriate, Jiang Tian's strength was amazing, and he could be promoted to state preceptor, which was second only to the emperor. Therefore, he did not dare to stop him. However, Fang Jinlong also gave Jiang Tian a Dharma artifact to make it easier to communicate. However, Jiang Tian turned a deaf ear to Dong Fangding's warning. At one point, Dong Fangding suspected that the Dharma artifact was broken. Under Dong Fangding's repeated persuasion, Jiang Tian also unceremoniously killed Su Xiaotang with a palm. Dong Fangding's face was pale, and cold sweat poured down. He stared at the scene in the water mirror and almost fell to the ground. He also never expected that Jiang Tian would be so crazy that he would not hesitate to offend one of the top holy sects on the continent to kill an insignificant person. This was simply too crazy and unreasonable. This is not my empire's lucky star, but a jinx. Dong Fangding was soaked in cold sweat, and the corners of his eyes trembled as he sighed helplessly. Chapter 1960. The empire had a large array to protect the city and country, as well as a battle array that gathered the strength of the common people. This was to keep the experts of the hidden sects in check and prevent them from provoking the country and affecting the prestige of the imperial family. But what if they sneaked in and assassinated? There was simply no one who could withstand it. Even if it was to assassinate an emperor, the success rate was extremely high. Originally, Dong Fangding thought highly of Jiang Tian and even wanted to make him the imperial preceptor. But now, he wanted nothing more than to avoid Jiang Tian like he was a viper. He wanted to stay as far away from Jiang Tian as possible. No, he still has some value. We can use him to intimidate the feudal lords and collect their tributes to make up for the empty treasury. We can also use him to destroy the Yao race. We can even weaken the feudal lords and abolish the feudal system. Dong Fangding forced himself to calm down and straightened his clothes. He glanced at the stunned feudal lords and smiled. Why are all of you so afraid? Imperial advisor has killed the Purple Marquis and quelled the rebellion. That is great news. Why don't we go and welcome him? Yes. We will set out immediately to welcome the new imperial advisor. The feudal lords were all shrewd people. Seeing that Dong Fangding didn't mention anything about Su Xiaotang's death, they understood that if one day the Luo Ying sect asked about it, Dong Fangding would pretend to know nothing about it and push all responsibility away. But a trace of worry appeared on Fang Jinlong's face. Although the Purple Marquis had been quelled, the empire's peace would not last for long. The Yao race and feudal lords were Dong Fangding's mortal enemies. Moreover, Dong Fangding was extremely good at manipulating people. He would probably use Jiang Xiqing as a killing knife to cut off his own obstacles. Although Fang Jinlong had only met Jiang Tian once, after understanding some of Jiang Tian's deeds, he had a very good impression of Jiang Tian. In fact, with Jiang Tian's strength, even if he went to the Holy Land Divine Sect, he could become an elder and a giant. In terms of cultivation resources, the Holy Land Divine Sect definitely surpassed the secular imperial dynasty. But Jiang Tian stayed in the Jinyuan Marquis residence and fought for the Lin clan. This was too righteous. Most importantly, Fang Jinlong was the same as Lin Hanqing. Although he was a duke, he was not selfish and was loyal to the dynasty and empire. Seeing that Jiang Tian had quelled the flames of war and saved the people of the empire from suffering, he admired Jiang Tian even more. When Dong Fangding respectfully welcomed Jiang Tian, it was an unprecedentedly grand occasion. The soaring heavenly horses pulled the chariot, forming a long line in the sky. The imperial canopy was like the clouds, and the treasure light was like the stars. The welcoming party was several thousand meters long. Junior Dong Fangding welcomes the imperial advisor, Mr. Jiang Xiqing. Thank you, sir, for pacifying the rebels, protecting the country, reversing the collapse of the sky, and saving millions of people from the fire and water. Facing Jiang Tian from afar, Dong Fangding bowed deeply and reverently, carrying out the etiquette of a disciple, like a believer meeting a god. He was also holding a large seal in his hands and a bright yellow triangular flag in his hands. The seal of the imperial protector. The flag of the state protector. It represented the supreme authority. His status and power were higher than the many princes and ministers, the 4 dukes, and even the grand tutor of the crown prince. He was second only to the emperor of a country. In other words, even the crown prince and princess would have to bow respectfully when they saw him, as if he was their teacher. The imperial advisor was on the same level as the emperor. He was truly second only to one person and above millions. Bestow the main city of Jianghan City and 10 other cities, as well as the subsidiary territories, as the imperial advisor's fief. Bestow the imperial garden and the overlooking river residence as the imperial advisor's residence. In addition, there were also ceremonial officials holding the title deeds of the fief, the imperial advisor's residence, and the crystal bills in their hands, loudly announcing the summons. The amount of the crystal bills was extremely terrifying. It was the amount of the imperial treasury's 10 years of expenditure, but it was all given to Jiang Tian. The size of the fief was even more terrifying. The fiefs of the Purple Marquis, Jiang Tian, Marquis of Shanshui, and the others were all counted as Jiang Tian's. The overlooking river residence was the crown prince's residence, occupying a spiritual vein. Although it was not as good as the imperial palace, it was definitely far better than the residences of the various dukes. Because of that, everyone was stunned by the scene before them. The crown prince is actually being saluted as a disciple. Has he been promoted to the imperial advisor? The crown prince said it in public. This is equivalent to announcing it to the world. What an honor this is! Also, the overlooking river residence was originally the crown prince's private property, right? It is his favorite. It is said that he had accumulated and built it for 50 years. I don't know how many array masters, rune masters, and skilled craftsmen had spent endless efforts to complete it. And now he has bestowed it to Jiang Xiqing. Everyone could not believe it. They sighed and were extremely envious. The crown prince really knows how to win people's hearts. Even Fang Jinlong was stunned, as if he had fallen into a dream. He knew that the crown prince was good at winning people's hearts, but he did not expect him to spend so much. Especially the overlooking river county, which was elegant and beautiful, like a celestial palace, extremely exquisite. Dong Fangding loved it to the extreme, but he was willing to part with it. You know what? Jiang Xiqing is a mighty figure of our Black Sun sector. An itinerant cultivator from outside the Milky Way galaxy defending the position of imperial advisor. This is the first time a new world has been created. In the crowd, Guochuandong was so excited that all the fat on his body trembled. He was so proud that tears flowed down his cheeks as he spoke to the guests of the Lin family. He had never felt so proud in his life. In fact, he was not even this excited when he ascended to the nascent soul stage and defended the position of Heavenly Lord in his homeland. Jiang Tian was slightly taken aback. He did not expect Dong Fangding to still be willing to rope him in after he had killed Su Xiaotang of the Luoying sect. He had killed Su Xiaoying because he felt that his dead self, Jiang Tian, had made too much of a fuss and was too famous. It was not good for him to experience the world of mortals, and it was not good for him to avoid being observed by the giants of the 9 heavens. Other than the Purple Marquis, Lin Hanqing no longer had any enemies in front of him. Therefore, Jiang Tian wanted to leave. He wanted to use another identity to start a new life. Therefore, he wanted to kill Su Xiaotang so that the shrewd crown prince Dong Fangding would give up on trying to rope him in. This result was very surprising to him. Crown Prince Dong Fangding was still unwilling to give up. However, for an old monster like Jiang Tian who had lived 2 lives, there was nothing he had not seen before. He would deal with whatever came his way. You have a good plan, I have a wall ladder. I can fight, no matter how many schemes you have, it is useless. The initiative will always be in my hands. Therefore, after a slight surprise, Jiang Tian immediately regained his composure. He supported Dong Fangding with his hands from afar and said with a smile, "You're right. Thank you, Your Majesty and Crown Prince, for your kindness. Although I am an itinerant cultivator outside the river, I do not dare to forget the country. Since I have come to live in the empire, I should treat this place as my second home. Isn't it right for cultivators to fight for their homeland? Do not dare to forget the country? Sir, your words are not only good, but also thought-provoking. On the side, eldest Princess Mou looked at Jiang Tian in a daze and could not help but sigh with emotion. It would be impolite to refuse. Jiang Tian also accepted the many rewards calmly. This time, Jiang Tian quelled the rebellion of the southern vassals led by the Purple Marquis without bloodshed. He was conferred the position of imperial advisor, and his name shook the world and the entire Eastern Empire. Chapter 1961. In the distance, Lin Hanqing was regretful and sighed, "Alas! Mr. Jiang is a genius, like a true dragon of the ninth heaven. How can he be trapped in the shallows for a long time? It's definitely not something my small Lin family can accommodate." The imperial preceptor was a member of the royal family. A duke could not be ordered around at will. To put it bluntly, even if Lin Hanqing faced any danger in the future, he could not ask Jiang Tian for help. Otherwise, it would be breaking the rules. Thinking of this, he also lamented his misfortune and angrily looked at Lin Dai, next to him, and said, "If you had agreed to that marriage back then, Mr. Jiang would be able to protect my family. Mr. Jiang will be able to stay in the family forever. In other words, he will protect the Lin family forever. After all, the law of the country does not destroy family ties." But now, Dai, it's a pity that you don't have this fortune. Lin Yang shook his head and sighed. Hearing this, the regret in Lin Dai's heart grew stronger. How could she imagine that the seemingly ordinary, unremarkable, and even a little shabby rogue cultivator from outside the river, a mere nascent soul cultivator, would obtain today's status and glory? It was simply unbelievable. Just like what her father said, if she had married Jiang Tian back then, what kind of glory would it be? What kind of glory would the Lin family be? At least in the Eastern Empire, the dignified Lin family of the Marquis residence was simply above everyone else. However, thinking of how Jiang Tian slapped and reprimanded her on the 100 Flowers Peak, Lin Dai's heart was filled with resentment and gloated. Alas, although you have the strength of a saint, you are not the top after all. You still can't compare to those holy lands. You are arrogant and unscrupulous, even daring to kill people from the Luoying sect. I'm afraid the Luoying sect's revenge will come soon. In the cultivation country, everything was practical. The imperial preceptor's conferring ceremony was simple and did not have many complicated formalities. It ended quickly. However, when the ceremony ended, Jiang Tian suddenly turned his head to look at eldest Princess Mou and said, "Hun Yo, do you remember Sir God Qi Ling? One of the 4 great guardians of the Demon King Palace." Tigress. Hearing this name, the Crown Prince, Second Prince, and Little Princess were all dumbfounded. Princess Mou was so angry that her face turned red and she clenched her teeth. She was the Princess Royal, the goddess of war of the empire. She was actually called Tigress? Where was the dignity of the royal family? Jiang Tun was too arrogant. However, eldest Princess Mou was unable to get angry. Not to mention that Jiang Tian had killed the Marquis of Purple Robe, quelled the rebellion of the southern vassals, and avoided a great war. Just the fact that Jiang Tian had taught her the 12 magical sounds of Langhuan and guided her cultivation made her feel that she owed Jiang Tian too much. This anger disappeared in a flash. Eldest Princess Mou also quickly noticed Jiang Tian's words. Her pretty eyebrows were knitted together as though she was puzzled. She said, "I seem to feel that this person seems to have interacted with me before. However, my memory is becoming increasingly blurry. It seems real and illusory. I am unable to recall it. It was a very strange feeling. My memories are also in a mess. I feel that Sir God Qi Ling has a great relationship with me. However, who is he?" Sir God Nyoben's deity also muttered to himself. He was hidden in the depths of Jiang Tian's sea of consciousness and was suppressed by the demon god of prison suppressing divine soul. He was like a little white rabbit under the huge claws of a ferocious tiger. He had no power to struggle and could be annihilated or swallowed at any time. That's right. Jiang Tian chuckled and did not explain further. However, his eyes gradually grew solemn. This was the power of history's correction. Jiang Tian used the law of time in the chaotic universe to perform the fist of time. The punch split the time barrier and pierced through the past, present, and future. He went back to the river of time to when Sir God Qi Ling was weak and killed him with his sword. This was equivalent to changing history. From that moment onwards, Sir God Qi Ling no longer existed in this space-time. It was equivalent to Jiang Tian going back to the past and changing history. Time was like a long river. It would not stop because of the lack of a wave. It continued to flow forward. However, the river of time had a natural power of washing, restraining, and correction. Washing and restraining made it extremely difficult to stop the action of going back to time. When a person was in the river of time, he would be washed by time and decline uncontrollably. Heaven and earth were predestined. Even deities, Buddhas, deities, and saints had to worry about their lifespan. Although they had a lifespan of thousands of years, or even longer, they could not escape death. In the universe, in the vast Milky Way, there were countless talented big shots who had exhausted their minds to come up with all kinds of wonderful methods, such as prolonging life, resurrection, possession, God Tao, and Ghost Tao. However, it was a pity that they were only useful for a short period of time. They could not escape from heaven and earth's predestined fate. They were washed by time, decayed, turned into dust, and returned to nothingness. Going back to the past was like rowing a boat against the current. The washing of time was more than 10 times or 100 times more than the river of time. That was the reason why Jiang Tian could only stay in the 3,000 years for 3 seconds. Even if he had a divine body of chaos, he could not take it. Space was like a riverbank and time was like a long river. The power of correction was the power of heaven and earth. In order to maintain the existing historical path and logic, it had modified space and existence. It had completely removed Sir God Qi Ling from this world. All traces were erased, including the memories in everyone's mind. The universe is chaotic, everything is impermanent. The fist of time can go back to the past and affect the future. I still have to use it carefully. Ignoring everyone's confused eyes, Jiang Tian's face slightly sighed and his heart was filled with emotions. I've been reborn. Apart from controlling many supreme techniques, my biggest advantage is that I have foresight and have the initiative. Although this fist is invincible, it has changed history, affected the present, and affected the future. Isn't this lifting a rock and smashing my own foot? His gaze pierced through the layers of void as if he had reached the area filled with evil aura. I hope the butterfly effect is not that strong. The time when the evil-infested ridge's treasure will not change too much. Otherwise, I'll be caught unprepared. In the next few days, Jiang Tian sat in Han City, assisted by Fang Jinlong and the other 3 dukes. Princess Mou also cooperated closely. Crown Prince Dongfang Ding acted quickly. With a thunderous momentum, he screened and purged the southern dukes who followed the purple Shan Marquis. The elites who sincerely repented were stripped of their hereditary titles and fiefs. They were changed to civil officials and generals to atone for their crimes. The Marquis Shanshui and the other diehards who had close ties with the purple Shan Marquis were all killed and their families annihilated. The mediocre ones were stripped of their titles and fiefs. They were demoted to commoners and exiled to the border. Due to the suppression of Jiang Tian, who possessed terrifying strength and was renowned for his ferocity, Dongfang Ding didn't suffer any substantial hindrance in dealing with the matter, and it was like a hot knife through butter. Dongfang Ding has won over Saint Xiqing. The empire will be as stable as Mount Tai. Whoever dares to betray the royal family will end up like the purple Shan Marquis and the Marquis Shanshui. When the Marquis of Shanshui and the other 200 people were escorted to the guillotine and turned into dust under the bombardment of large magic tools, countless dukes who were watching the ceremony were uneasy. At this moment, they no longer dared to have any thoughts of rebelling against the royal family. When the Marquis of Shanshui and the other henchmen were publicly executed, it also announced that the turmoil in the empire had finally come to an end. Chapter 1962. In the easternmost part of the Saint Origin world. A streak of green light streaked across the sky at an unimaginable speed. Moreover, this escape light appeared and disappeared from time to time. Sometimes it drilled into the mountains, and sometimes it appeared in the sea of clouds tens of thousands of miles away. Obviously, the owner of this escape light was very careful and stealthy. No one knew whether he was being hunted or not. He really didn't chase me. Hua Xiangrong ran as fast as she could until she saw the words, Luoying Sect, hanging high in the sky. Then she breathed a long sigh of relief. However, she still glanced behind her with lingering fear, as if she had just escaped death. Along the way, she was worried that Jiang Tian would catch up with her and kill her. But she never expected that Jiang Tian didn't chase her from the beginning to the end. She was just scared for nothing. Jiang Xiqing is really audacious. Does he completely ignore the dignity of the Luoying sect? Does he think that our Luoying sect can't kill him because we don't want to? How preposterous! Hua Xiangrong glanced at the vast sect and suddenly felt a little annoyed. She was so angry that her plump chest heaved violently and almost burst out of her clothes. The territory of the Luoying sect was no less than that of a country. Cultivation consumed countless natural materials and earthly treasures. In particular, large sects were supported by many external industries, which formed countless cities, businesses, and so on. Between the mountain ridges, there were numerous exquisite buildings that were extremely elegant. They did not pursue height or grandeur, but instead had a natural feeling. They complemented the lofty mountains, steep ridges, long rivers, and plants, and were completely natural. They stretched for hundreds of miles, and one could not see the end of it with a glance. Looking at these buildings, the aura of vitality and the aura of civilization rushed to the face. The whole world was full of vigorous vitality, which made people feel refreshed. On these mountains, inside and outside the buildings, there were a large number of practitioners and mortals coming and going. There was an endless stream of people and carriages, which made the place extremely prosperous. Day and night didn't stop. Night came. Inside and outside, the entire sect was filled with fireworks and silver flowers, and the lights were shining brilliantly. Beyond these buildings, there were tall mountains floating in the sky. They were surrounded by clouds and mist, and they were in picturesque disorder. Flowers were in full bloom. These mountain peaks stretched far into the distance, like the scales of a giant dragon. No one knew how many there were. Even with Hua Xiangrong's strong divine awareness, she could not see the end of them at a glance. This was the deepest part of the Luoying sect. The core area was called the Heaven Pulse Mountain. According to the legends, it was an unfathomable dragon vein in the entire Saint Origin world. It was famous in the immemorial era, but now, it was occupied by the Luoying sect. After pinching a talisman, Hua Xiangrong sped up again. After several flashes, she also appeared on a floating mountain. This mountain peak wasn't tall, but the scenery was beautiful. Lingji mushrooms, ginseng, immortal peaches, white deer, and white apes grew everywhere. All kinds of flowers bloomed, and many spiritual waterfalls flowed. It was a small and exquisite paradise. It belonged to Saint Chenma. Fresh flowers covered the mountains and plains, as bright as the clouds and brocade. Walking in it was like taking a stroll in a painting. Nothing more beautiful could be imagined. All kinds of colorful birds were flying and shuttling about, and butterflies were also dancing. Some butterflies were so huge that they were like palm leaf fans. Hua Xiangrong even saw a butterfly about the height of a person in the depths of the flowers. It flapped its wings, and the pollen on its body was flying in all directions. It was like a dream. These butterflies are all my teacher's pets. Any one of them has the cultivation of Yuan-Ing realm, and the individual strength is not inferior to mine. When Hua Xiangrong looked at the butterfly, the colorful butterfly, which was as tall as a person, also sensed her. A strong rule emanated from the butterfly, but it stopped as soon as it came into contact with the rule. Hua Xiangrong smiled slightly. This butterfly knew Hua Xiangrong, and it just played with her. But if it was an intruder, even if she was in the God transformation realm, she would probably be killed on the spot. Hua Xiangrong went up the mountain along the winding path of flowers, which was as complicated as 9 twists and 18 turns. These flowers seemed to faintly form a grand formation. If it wasn't for her being extremely familiar with every single plant and tree here and being deeply aware of the profundities within them, she would probably have fallen into this grand formation and transformed into a pile of bones before being absorbed by the flowers like spring mud. Hundreds of flowers were in full bloom all year round. The whole mountain and valley were full of warm and moist air. It was naturally condensed and formed, and it was like spring all year round. Even the soil on the ground was full of the fragrance of flowers. For thousands of years, the petals of flowers fell into the soil and formed flower mud, which itself was an unparalleled spiritual medicine. If it was used on mortals, it could even make them grow flesh and bones. The mountain was covered with clouds and mist. Suddenly, there was a bright light in front of her. Through the clouds and mist, she could see the sun hanging in the sky, sprinkling thousands of golden rays, which also plated the sea of clouds with a layer of golden edge, which looked magnificent and dazzling. At this time, she was already halfway up the mountain, on a huge platform. The ground of this platform was crystal white, and there were many exquisite cracks in a layer of enamel, which looked like porcelain. At first glance, she could tell that it had been smelted by the supreme genuine fire, refined into the law, and integrated with Gang Chi. Even the full blow of a god transformation realm expert could hardly leave a mark on it. This platform was equivalent to a public square. It was able to accommodate 10,000 people. However, it was completely empty at the moment. In the depths of the square, there was a cave palace. There was no building material, as if the whole mountain was used as the foundation and it was hollowed out on the top. Saint Qianma was so generous that she had built a mountain into a palace. As soon as Hua Xiangrong stood still, a female cultivator in a white Taoist robe, with her hair tied up in a high bun, a delicate face, and eyes as calm as a lake. Her temperament was elegant and she had a sense of tranquility. Hua Xiangrong hurriedly knelt on the ground, with a complex expression of reverence, fear, and panic on her face, and said in a trembling voice, "Master, I pay my respects to you." Marquis Purple Robe was besieged by the national master of the Eastern Empire. I was incompetent and couldn't stop them, which led to the destruction of Marquis Purple Robe Mansion. Even the bone-melting earth mirror was broken, and junior sister apprentice Su was unfortunately killed. I'm incompetent, I'm guilty, and I've let you down. Please punish me severely. Even the bone-melting earth mirror could be broken? Was it the joint attack of several half-saints and sages of the Eastern royal family? Saint Qianma's white and crystal face, which was like a beautiful jade, was slightly moved, but she soon calmed down and asked in a deep voice. The bone-melting earth mirror was the magic treasure that Zi Qianmo relied on to become famous. After being refined by her several times, it contained the law of the sun and the power of the sky. In her view, this treasure was too powerful. With this treasure, Su Xiaotang could be invincible in the entire Eastern Empire. At least, she was invincible in a one-on-one fight. Only the half-dead half-saints and sages of the Eastern Empire's royal family could have a slim chance of breaking the bone-melting earth mirror if they joined forces. Chapter 1963. However, Zi Qianma subconsciously felt that it was not possible. Because the living fossils and old coffins of the Eastern Empire were all people of the same generation as her. Back then, in order to establish the Eastern Empire, they fought side by side with her. Their relationship was very deep. It was impossible for them to destroy her magic weapon and kill her disciples. In order to transcend, she cut off her ties with the mortal world and cut off her relationship with the Purple Marquis Mansion. This was not a pretense, but a real break. It was acceptable for these old coffins of the Eastern Empire to kill them. Too many years had passed, and the bloodline was already very thin. Saint Qianma was not willing to take revenge for these bloodline descendants at all. In addition to her roots in her family, there were more than thousands of such families like the Purple Marquis Mansion. Today, one was injured and she went to save him. Tomorrow, one was obsessed with cultivation, and she went to guide him to resolve it. The day after tomorrow, another one was killed, and she went to take revenge. How could she have the time to cultivate? How could she have the energy to pursue the supreme realm? Moreover, she had heard a little about what the Purple Marquis did. He was fierce and domineering, killing loyal people and bullying his colleagues. He had already betrayed her original intention and philosophy when she established the clan. The reason why the Eastern Imperial family killed him was because the Purple Marquis was dishonest. He set off a bloody storm, causing the people to suffer and the people to live in misery. To put it bluntly, even if the Eastern Imperial family did not do it, Saint Qianma herself wanted to clean up the clan. This time, she sent Hua Xiangrong and Su Xiaotang to the Purple Marquis mansion to bring them to the sect to cultivate. In fact, she wanted to take the opportunity to teach them a lesson and let them focus on the overall situation, be loyal to the royal family, and not bring chaos to the empire. But the relationship between master and disciple was different. It had already surpassed the thin blood relationship. Moreover, her disciples and students were also the practitioners and executors of her ideals. In Saint Qianma's view, those old farts of the Eastern Imperial family would definitely not do anything to her disciples. Even if the situation was urgent and they had no choice but to do it, they would come to her sect and explain the whole story to avoid any conflicts. Or a battle formation? Zi Qianma added in her heart. The battle formation gathered the strength of all living beings and billions of soldiers. It was like gathering sand into a tower, gathering armpits into a fur coat, and trickling streams into a great river. Moreover, in recent years, in order to resist the interference of the sects, the knowledge of battle formations in the mortal empires was also improving and evolving. If the Eastern Imperial family gathered the armies of many dukes and marquises, they might be able to break the battle formation. It's not the sage of the Eastern royal family, nor is it the power of the battle formation. It's a rogue cultivator from outside the Milky Way named Jiang Xiqing. With a wave of his finger, he destroyed the bone-transforming Earth-Sky mirror. Hua Xiangrong said in a deep voice. What? The power of his finger and palm is actually so terrifying. Zi Qianma's pretty face revealed a trace of surprise. She seemed to have received a great shock. The might of a saint weapon is boundless, and it can suppress others with the might of heaven and earth. Blocking a saint weapon is already extremely difficult, and destroying a saint weapon is even more difficult. To destroy a saint weapon with a single strike is even harder than ascending to the heavens. This fellow Taoist Xiqing's strength was truly impressive. I'm afraid he can be ranked in the top 20 of the entire continent. If it were 500 years ago when I hadn't reached the peak of my current realm, I'm afraid I wouldn't have the confidence to destroy the bone-transforming Earth-Sky mirror with one strike. This man is amazing and his strength is tyrannical. Even if I were to fight against him, I'm afraid I would have to spend a lot of effort to protect myself. It's reasonable that you didn't protect your junior sister apprentice. Don't worry about it. She waved her right hand, and the falling petals turned into a gentle wind, which helped Hua Xiangrong up. Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong couldn't believe it. She was so shocked that her whole body trembled. She said excitedly, This Jiang Xiqing is actually so powerful. Zi Qianma nodded slightly, and a smile appeared on her pretty face. Suddenly, it was as if hundreds of flowers were blooming, brightening up the whole world. Her voice was as pleasant as jade. This is what I said before. Love with impartiality and non-aggression, and all living beings are equal. The Saint Origin world is a whole, and the real enemy is the invasion of the devil realm. Whether it's a rogue cultivator or a native, we should love and support each other. Her eyebrows were raised in exultation, and she said excitedly, You see, although Jiang Xiqing is a rogue cultivator from outside the Saint Origin world, his strength is incredible. He's much stronger than those conceited and complacent natives of the continent. Speaking of this, Zi Qianma sighed and frowned slightly. She said regretfully, He has the cultivation of the Void Return realm, and I'm afraid his lifespan is at least 5,000 or 6,000 years. No, the cultivators from outside the Saint Origin world make slow progress, and I'm afraid his lifespan is more than 10,000 years. Unfortunately, his lifespan is too long, and the rules of the Great Way are too condensed and entangled with the origin, which conflicts with the wood cultivation method of our Luoying sect. Otherwise, if he can join our Luoying sect as an elder or a hall leader, wouldn't he be a rare talent? Wouldn't it make our Luoying sect even more powerful? Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong also couldn't help but interrupt. Master, it's my fault that I didn't tell you clearly because I was in a panic after the shocking battle. Jiang Xiqing is extremely young, and I'm afraid his lifespan is less than 100 years, or even less than 50 years old. Moreover, he's only in the nascent soul realm, but he has the strength to fight against a saint of the void return realm. What? This time, Zi Qianma turned pale with fright, and her body sank down. The porcelain-like ground was suppressed until fine cracks appeared on it, and the whole mountain trembled slightly and sank 100 meters. Master. Hua Xiangrong was shocked, and her face turned pale. Zi Qianma had always been calm and steady, and her heart was always calm. However, she couldn't even stabilize her body at this moment, and the rules were in disorder, cracking the ground and suppressing the mountain. It could be seen how unstable her mind was. How can there be such a person in the world? A nascent soul realm cultivator who is less than 100 years old can actually suppress a soul formation realm cultivator, and his strength is close to that of the void return realm, and even a saint. This is simply a rare peerless genius. Zi Qianma sighed and couldn't believe it. She waved her hand and said, "Give me all of Jiang Xiqing's battle records." During this time, she had been in seclusion, so she didn't know anything about what happened in the outside world. However, the Luoying sect was a peerless sect, and its intelligence system was so huge and terrifying that there was nothing it didn't know. She waved her hand. Senior Qianma. The Knowledge Hall, which was in charge of intelligence in the sect, responded, and a shining jade slip flew out from the depths of the hall. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Zi Qianma. She pointed at the jade slip calmly. Brilliant light blossomed from the communication jade slip. Lines of words and lifelike images appeared in front of the woman. The more she read, the more shocked she was. She sighed and said, "Great talent, genius. This person is really extraordinary. The strength of a nascent soul realm cultivator is so terrifying. I'm afraid it's a divine nascent soul, or even a level higher, a rare deity nascent soul." What? A deity nascent soul? It's like the deity nascent soul of a child from the 9 heavens. Hua Xiangrong couldn't believe it, and her face changed drastically as if she was struck by lightning. Chapter 1964. The immortal grade nascent soul was really rare. In the entire history of the Saint Origin world, there were only a few of them. Even those who claimed to be immortal grade nascent soul, the records about them were vague, and no one dared to say that they were undeniable. Many people speculated that these immortal grade nascent souls might have appeared for various purposes. Some people even claimed that the immortal grade nascent soul was a non-existent existence, and that it was merely a more powerful sacred grade nascent soul. A rogue cultivator from outside the river turned out to be an immortal grade nascent soul. It's incredible. However, if not, how can you explain his strength? He killed the abyssal demon dragon, who was comparable to a sage in the nascent soul realm. Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong couldn't help but be shocked. However, Hua Xiangrong suddenly reacted and blurted out, "Master, are you not going to avenge junior sister apprentice Su?" Moreover, that Jiang Xiqing was extremely savage, ferocious and vicious to the extreme. Even if you are kind and don't care about her. But the cultivation world has always been cruel. Will he believe it? He must be on guard. When he grows up one day, I'm afraid he will kill the sect and eliminate all future troubles. Hearing this, Saint Qianma looked over with a faint smile and asked with a cold face, "So, you think I should kill her in the cradle while she is still weak, so as not to raise a tiger, right?" "I do think so." A trace of resentment flashed in the depths of Hua Xiangrong's eyes. "I have told you many times that love with impartiality is not offensive. When it reaches the highest level, it means great love is like no love. This no love does not mean that you are cold and ruthless and ignore the world. It means that you are not bound by emotions and demonic obstacles. You look at cultivation, human affairs, life, and even the universe and the world with an objective and rational attitude. Saint Qianma said earnestly, Jiang Siqing did kill Su Shao. But think about it. What is all this for? First of all, Mark Zishan was deceived by the demon clan. He led the vassals to raise the flag of rebellion and bring chaos to the Eastern Empire. In troubled times, severe punishments are needed. The Eastern royal family is too weak, and the power and strength of the vassals are too strong. If Jiang Siqing did not kill her, it would be a warning to others. I'm afraid that in the near future, there will be a second, third, and fourth purple marquis. I've also seen the images of your imprints back then. Little Tang, this child, has disappointed me. Who would have thought that her understanding of the doctrine would be so rigid and inflexible? Jiang Siqing had killed Ziyunshao and Zishan Marquis family. If she had prevented the subsequent war, she would have saved millions of lives. Do you understand? Disciple understands. Hua Xiangrong could only nod. Su Shaotang has gone too far. Ziyunxiao's life was a life, but was Jiang Siqing's life not a life? In order to save one person, he killed one person. What was the point? What kind of virtue was this? Without a word of disagreement, he raised his hand to kill. She's treating my words as a passing wind. She's disgracing the sect. Saint Qianma's eyes were filled with regret. She lamented his misfortune and was angry that he did not fight. She shook her head and sighed. Besides, if Jiang Siqing is killed, the Eastern Imperium will not be able to reach a balance with the pantheon of demons. War broke out again. At that time, how many living beings would suffer? The flames of war continued, and the mountains and rivers were shattered. Su Shaotang did not kill Jiang Siqing alone, but billions of people. You can't be unemotional and act only based on your own likes and dislikes. Alas, sometimes I really doubt whether you are suitable to be my disciples, or even whether you are suitable for the doctrine of the Luoying sect, and whether it is necessary to stay in the sect. Saint Qianma's tone was neither warm nor angry, neither fast nor slow, but it was very shocking. There was a faint intention to expel her from the sect. It also brought great psychological pressure to Hua Xiangrong. Disciple knows her mistake. In the future, disciple will remember master's teachings and truly love with impartiality and non-aggression. I will act with a virtuous heart and be unemotional. I will love as if I have no love. I will look at everything rationally and comprehensively without being extreme or boastful. Hua Xiangrong was frightened. Her face was pale, and she was sweating profusely. She could not even stand. She hurriedly knelt on the ground, kowtowed like pounding garlic, and said in a trembling voice, Alas! The doctrine of our Luoying sect has always been contrary to ordinary human nature. Cultivation is naturally filled with difficulties and obstacles, and demonic obstacles are everywhere. Saint Qianma shook her head gently with a kind look. She smiled slightly and said with deep emotion, I don't blame you this time. Get up quickly. Find time to go down the mountain and meet the Eastern royal family. Tell them that I am deeply sorry for the rebellion of Purple Marquis. Saint Qianma said, I will help them settle the chaos of the pantheon of demons. I also apologize to Jiang Siqing on behalf of me and ask her to forgive me for not disciplining her well. I hope she can let bygones be bygones and cooperate with us to suppress the pantheon of demons. We can't just rely on our words. Go to the treasury of the sect and get some cultivation resources. I want 3 to 5 divine weapons and give them to Saint Siqing. Saint Qianma waved her hand slightly, indicating that Hua Xiangrong could leave. Disciple obeys. Hua Xiangrong bowed deeply. Her graceful and sexy body turned slightly and disappeared from the place. Saint Qianma had been standing quietly for a long time without saying a word, like a jade statue of a goddess. After a long time, she sighed and muttered to herself, 3,000 years, in the blink of an eye, another 3,000 years have passed. 3,000 years ago, my husband and I just met. Hand in hand, we wandered in Jianghu freely. During a demon hunting mission, I met the founding emperor, Dongfang Run by chance. I was shocked by his amazing talent and unfathomable magical powers of the East Rising purple chi art. I was also moved by his great ambition of caring for the common people, lifting the sky from its side, and saving the people from their predicament. Inspired by him, we went on a campaign to conquer the world together, sweeping away all the influential families and ambitious and ruthless people in the world, and establishing the great unified Eastern Empire. A kind smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes became deep and vicissitudes of life. She seemed to have returned to the past when she was free and vigorous, traveling thousands of miles with a sword and fighting between heaven and earth. 3,000 years have passed. Dongfang Run has already died. Shen Lang has also turned into a handful of yellow soil. Only I, an old woman, am left. I'm still struggling at death's door. It's really sad. She sighed again, with endless bleakness and sadness. Mortals often envied the long lifespan of cultivators, who were almost immortal and had a long life. But for immortal cultivators who had extremely long lifespans, was a long lifespan really a lucky thing? During the long period of time, he watched as his loved ones grew old, his lover passed away from the world, and even his juniors withered away before him, leaving him all alone. How lonely and desolate was it to face the yellow light and the yellow light? How desolate and lonely was it? Time was ruthless. It withered the prosperity and shattered the beauty. In the end, even their memories were washed and covered, becoming blurred. Only they sat alone in the long river of time. No one accompanied them, and they didn't even know what day it was. Was this a kind of luck or misfortune? 3,000 years ago, the passage between the two worlds in the critical canyon was opened and the barrier was broken. Endless demonic chi erupted and the demon beasts were contaminated. They demonized and went berserk. They became bloodthirsty, cruel, and ruthless. They brought chaos to the world and destroyed all life. At that time, the Eastern dynasty had just been established. There were many things waiting to be done and the country was weak. But they were still fearless. They shouldered the responsibility of sweeping away the demons and suppressing the critical canyon. It was very difficult for them to fight. At that time, we also asked for help from the major sections. However, in the eyes of the high and mighty sects, we are just a newly established empire. A few divinity transformation stage cultivators are not worth mentioning at all. Other than the ancient medicine hall and the Luoying sect, no other forces sent reinforcements. In that battle, countless experts of the Eastern dynasty died. Blood flowed like a river and bones were piled up. In the mortal world, 9 out of 10 houses were empty and starving people were everywhere. There were even tragic scenes of people eating children. It was like hell on earth. Saint Qianma's eyes were even more sorrowful. She sighed and said, "But it's different this time. I'm considered a big figure in the Luoying sect. I have some ties with the sect masters of the major sects and sacred grounds and the emperors of the countries. If I ask them to help, they will give me some face." Thinking of this, she immediately took action. She told her disciple that she wanted to travel around and flew out. Chapter 1965. On the other side. In order to win over this Saint Siqing, Master has really put in a lot of effort. 3 to 5 holy weapons, my God. That's 300 to 500 years of Master's holy weapons. After arriving at the mountain where the storehouse was located and receiving the treasures, Hua Xiangrong stood on the platform in front of the storehouse. She wiped the cold sweat off her forehead and murmured in shock. Master said 3 to 5, but I only took 3. I'm being frugal on behalf of Master. After all, Jiang Siqing is just a rogue cultivator outside the river. She's not experienced and hasn't seen any natural treasures. Not to mention 3 holy weapons, even if it's 1, he'll be so happy that his mouth will split open. At this time, suddenly, 5 conveyance lights flew across the sky and landed on the platform. They turned into 2 men and 3 women, a total of 5 cultivators. The leader was a blue-clothed Huashan realm cultivator. He cupped his hands and said respectfully, "Greetings, Senior Sister Hua." Hua Xiangrong's face turned slightly serious. She returned the greeting seriously and said, "Greetings, senior brother Xing. Greetings, senior brothers and sisters." The blue-clothed Huashan realm cultivator and the other cultivators were all disciples of Saint Lien Huahan. Lien Huahan had just broken through to the void return realm from Huashan realm. Her cultivation and strength were far inferior to her master, Saint Chima. However, she was the saint of the Luoying sect, the daughter of the current sect master. Therefore, her status in the sect was very high. Even Zi Qianma and other elders, the giants of the void return realm, had to be courteous to her and talk to her as equals. Therefore, Hua Xiangrong didn't dare to neglect them. Because they followed different masters to cultivate, it was not easy to rank them based on their seniority. Therefore, they all called each other senior brothers and sisters to show their respect. "Senior brother Xing, did you come to the storehouse to be rewarded by our master, or did you have some gains and hand in the treasures?" Hua Xiangrong had a good relationship with senior brother Xing. Therefore, she didn't stand on ceremony and asked directly with a smile. Neither. Hua Xiangrong was naturally charming and charming. Senior brother Xing also liked her very much. Therefore, he didn't hide it from her. He put his hands behind his back and said with a smile, "Thunder Yang Sex Zongzi Yang Dingen is here to propose marriage to my junior sister, Fairy Ling." He had brought a lot of betrothal gifts, including a total of 10 saint weapons. There were also many divine elixirs and miraculous elixirs. There are also a few ancient scrolls in their sex collection, which are related to some legacy secret realms. Oh, Fairy Ling is so lucky. Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong's pretty face froze slightly. She could not hide her shock and said with a faint smile. The Thunder Yang sect was known for its fierce and violent lightning arts. Although its strength was slightly inferior to the ancient medicine hall and the Luoying sect, it was still one of the top 10 sects in the Saint Origin world. At its peak, it could even be ranked 6th. His status as a Zongzi was even more special, and he was expected to inherit the orthodoxy in the future. Yang Dingtian's strength might not be comparable to Lien Huahan, Fairy Qingjue, Gu Xian, and the others, but his status was the same. The authority and resources he possessed far exceeded the sect's core disciples, elite disciples, and even the hall masters and branch masters. Hua Xiangrong knew about Ling Er's background. It was rumored that she came from a galaxy outside the Milky Way, which was extremely destitute. In Hua Xiangrong's eyes, that galaxy didn't have any decent cultivation orthodoxies. It was very desolate, and it would be a compliment to say that it was a remote and desolate place. It was just like a primitive and uncivilized tribe. Furthermore, Huang Linger's bone frame wasn't very good. Although she had the second wood spirit root, it wasn't considered a saint-grade bone frame and could only be considered as a 9th grade. Therefore, Hua Xiangrong's heart was rather sour. She was much stronger than Huang Linger in all aspects, but she didn't have such a good partner. Our family's Huang Linger isn't bad either. At the side, a rather mischievous young cultivator laughed and said, "Renfringlio's latest 100-flower spectrum has been released. Junior sister Ling is ranked 3rd in the 100-flower spectrum this time. She is only 2nd to Gu Xian and Fairy Qingjue. Little brat. Renfeng Lu is extremely bored. Instead of cultivating, he spends all his time wandering among the flowers, full of cosmetics. He is the most lascivious man in the world since ancient times. What kind of 100-flower spectrum, 10 beauties painting? If Senior Lien finds out, I'm afraid she will beat you up." Hua Xiangrong pointed her finger at the young cultivator's forehead and said coquettishly. Renfeng Lu was also a famous eccentric in the Saint Origin world. His cultivation was not bad, and his strength was unfathomable. He had been in the God Transformation realm for many years and even reached the Sage realm. However, this person had no interest in cultivation. He was carefree and unrestrained, lazy and carefree. Every day, he would travel around and enjoy the scenery. What he liked most was to admire beautiful women, collect the images of beautiful women, and comment on their rankings. He would make jade slips such as 100-flower spectrum and 10 beauties painting and sell them everywhere. In fact, The income from selling jade slips was not worth mentioning for a powerful figure like him. Of course, he did this kind of thing not for profit, but purely because of his interest. However, it had to be said that Renfringlio's aesthetic standard was indeed not bad, and his taste was very sharp. His evaluations of the 100-flower spectrum and 10 beauties painting were very high in the major sections. There were even many male cultivators who would use this as an important reference when looking for a Dao companion. It was truly following the picture to find a good horse. Presumably, Yang Dingtian had seen Huang Linger's image on the 100-flower spectrum and was moved to propose marriage. In the early years, some female cultivators even bribed Ren Fenglu with natural treasures in order to find a good husband. However, not only did Ren Fenglu reject them, he even used the 100-flower spectrum to publicize their names and gave vicious comments, causing these female cultivators to be so ashamed that they wanted to die. However, Ren Fenglu was so ruthless and selfless that it made the rankings of the 100-flower spectrum and the 10 beauties painting even more authoritative and credible. There were even more admirers. I just take a look occasionally. That young cultivator scratched his head and laughed. At this moment, senior brother Xing's brows were tightly knitted as he softly sighed and said, "This 100-flower spectrum is also harmful." "Senior, why do you say so?" Hua Xiangrong asked. Once she is on the list, her attitude immediately changes. Senior Xing smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Junior Ling, you have seen senior sister before. She was originally modest and low-key, kind to others, and could even be said to resign herself to adversity. But after she was on the list, she actually rejected Yang Dingtian's proposal and even threatened to kill herself. Isn't this making things difficult for Master?" Senior Xing was just short of saying, "I gave her face, but she didn't want it." Hua Xiangrong was also very puzzled and said, "Yes, I really don't know what is going on with Huang Linger. Not to mention that Yang Dingtian is more than enough to match her. Even if he is an ordinary disciple, she shouldn't disobey the Saint Lady's decision of marriage. The Saint Lady brought her from a desolate place to the Saint Origin world. What kind of grace is this? I think Master dotes on her too much. If he punished her a few times according to the sect rules, she would know the pain. Let's see if she still dares to say no." That's right. Back then, the Saint Lady received help from Yang Dingtian's father and owes him a huge favor. That slut with the surname Huang doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If she were to reject this marriage, wouldn't she be looking for trouble for Master? She is not sensible at all. She deserves to be killed. The other 3 female cultivators under Lian Huahun mocked and spoke viciously. Chapter 1966. Hua Xiangrong smiled but didn't say anything. In fact, they were jealous, insanely jealous. Although the Luoying sect's motto was to love with impartiality and non-aggression, all things were equal. But it was extremely rare to see someone like Saint Qianma who practiced it so deeply. Many disciples were just saying it, but they still had a deep prejudice against the sect in their hearts. They paid attention to bloodline and origin. When they met the strong, they would belittle themselves. When they met the weak, they would despise them. In the eyes of these female cultivators, Huang Linger was an extragalactic cultivator from the wild original star field and wasn't worthy of Yang Dingtian. However, these things didn't have much to do with her. After listening to them, she cupped her fist and bid farewell. Core disciples like Hua Xiangrong all had their own mountains and a few palaces as their training grounds. After taking the 3 sacred weapons, Hua Xiangrong still had to prepare for the trip to the Eastern Empire, such as selecting the disciples who would accompany her. Therefore, she didn't delay too much. Instead, she immediately used the escape technique and returned to her own training ground. From afar, she saw a female cultivator standing at the entrance of the training ground, motionless. Her figure was graceful and exquisite. Although she was wrapped in the loose core disciple robe, it still couldn't hide her graceful figure. Moreover, her facial features were delicate and pretty. Her beautiful face, without any makeup, was as clear and lustrous as ice jade. Her pair of clear and beautiful eyes were as bright as gems. Her simple hair bun was inserted with a jasper hairpin, and her neck was slender and snowy. "It's Huang Linger. Why did you come to my training ground?" Although Hua Xiangrong didn't have a deep relationship with Huang Linger was too beautiful and had a good reputation. She naturally knew her. Hua Xiangrong descended and walked to Huang Linger, who was less than 100 meters away. Huang Linger hadn't reacted yet. Her pair of beautiful eyes looked at a point in the distant void. She was motionless like a white jade statue. Cough cough. "I didn't know that Fairy Ling would come to my humble home. Please excuse me for not welcoming you." Hua Xiangrong coughed lightly and wanted to laugh. Huang Linger had a kind of infatuation. She was pure and natural and was very cute. It was like a deer in the forest, harmless to humans and animals. It could even be said that it lacked the vigilance that a cultivator should have. If Lian Huahun had not protected her well, she would have died many times over. She was kind to others, did not fight or snatch, and was indifferent to others. She was weak and pitiful, making others unable to help but feel a desire to protect her. Even though they were both women, Hua Xiangrong could not bring herself to hate her. Aya! Huang Linger was so scared that her whole body quivered, and she came back to her senses. Seeing clearly that it was Hua Xiangrong, Huang Linger took light steps forward, curtsied, and respectfully said, "Junior Martial Sister Huang Linger greets Senior Martial Sister Hua. I hope that Senior Sister will forgive me for my impoliteness for visiting so suddenly." She was beautiful to begin with, and the higher her cultivation, the stronger the natural aura on her body. Moreover, she often accompanied Saintess Lian Huahun by her side. After being carefully trained by Lian Huahun, her every move was graceful, beautiful, and natural. She was simply like a rare treasure. "Ling, you don't have to be so formal. We are all disciples of the Luoying sect. We are of the same breath and branch, and we support each other as close as brothers." Hua Xiangrong smiled and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" With a burst of intoxicating fragrance, Huang Linger walked to Hua Xiangrong, reached out her slender hand, and grabbed Hua Xiangrong's sleeve, which was as white as translucent mutton fat jade. She raised her pretty face slightly, and her clear eyes were full of sadness and expectation. She asked in a charming voice, "Senior Martial Sister Hua, your status in the sect is far higher than mine. I want to ask you for a favor. Can you help me read the image of Saint Siqing's brand?" The battle between Jiang Tian and the demonic dragon in the abyss was famous on the continent and shocked the world. Many sect masters of holy clans held him in high esteem, saying that he was the first person below the Saint of Void Return and unparalleled fighting power with the strength of a Saint of Void Return. They were not stingy with their praise. However, the specific battle image was classified as top secret information by each sect. Without a certain status and identity, one was not qualified to read it at all. "Junior Martial Sister, do you want to see this person's cultivation method and fighting style?" Hua Xiangrong smiled slightly. Huang Linger nodded. Hua Xiangrong said, "That's right. This person's fighting power is indeed extraordinary. His physical body is strong, and his magic power is unpredictable. Watching his battle image is of great benefit to our cultivation and the improvement of our fighting awareness." Although she did not like Jiang Tian's overbearing style, she had to admit that Jiang Tian's strength was indeed terrible. She could not help sighing with emotion. "Master is right. All creatures are equal. Even a muddy pond can turn into a dragon's pond, and a carp can leap over the dragon's gate. Who would have thought that he, a rogue cultivator from the Black Sunstar region, has a foundation, talent, cultivation method, and fighting power that are far superior to us, the natives of the continent? Ah? He, Sage Siqing, is he from the Black Sunstar region?" The speaker did not mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Huang Linger trembled as if she had been struck by lightning. She grabbed Hua Xiangrong's sleeves tightly to prevent herself from falling to the ground. "Junior Martial Sister Ling, what's wrong with you?" Hua Xiangrong looked over in surprise. Huang Linger's face was filled with sorrow and despair. Two streams of tears rolled down her snow-white cheeks. With a swoosh, they dripped onto the jade-like enamel floor, sparkling and translucent like morning dew. It's not him. It's not him after all, Huang Linger murmured in her heart. Her mind was in a mess. Since that day when she was patrolling the territory of Mars, she was taken away from the solar system by her master, who had traveled the universe. After arriving in the Saint Origin world, she had been missing her hometown, her family, friends, and Jiang Tian all the time. Those grasses and trees, the streets of the city, the magnificent mountains and rivers, and the more profound things behind the mountains and rivers were hundreds of millions of light years away from her. They seemed to be separated by a vast galaxy of light years that could never be crossed. On the Saint Origin world, the spiritual chi was more abundant, like a waterfall. The Dharma was more condensed, and the Great Way was more tenacious. It could even be said that this land was more vast and magnificent. However, in Huang Linger's mind, she was like a creature that had lost the traction of the earth and gravity, floating in the universe. A creature that was as small as a speck of dust. In the past few years, she begged Lian Huahan again and again to let her go. She cried, knelt, and even tried to commit suicide by exploding her Yuan Ying. In the past few years, she was always worried about what would happen to the Earth under the invasion of the Big Dipper demon clan, and whether the human race on Earth would be extinct. She also did not know the result of Jiang Tian's expedition to the Immortal Ruins, or whether he would die in that strange world. In the Luoying sect, she seemed to be free, but in fact, she was like a prisoner, living a life worse than death. Live, you must live. No matter how difficult it is, you must live. As long as there's a glimmer of hope that Jiang Tian is still alive in this world, I can't die. She kept telling herself and encouraging herself. Since Jiang Tian was an immortal cultivator, he would definitely reach the central galaxy one day. According to her calculations, the Saint Origin world was also the path that Jiang Tian had to take to reach the central galaxy. She had to wait for him. Chapter 1967. Every time a cultivator from beyond the galaxy rose, Huang Linger would inquire about them carefully. In particular, the rise of Jiang Xiqing this time gave Huang Linger a glimmer of hope that she had never had before. Like telepathy, an inexplicable intuition told her that Jiang Tian was Jiang Xiqing. However, she didn't expect that she would be disappointed. Since Saint Xiqing came from the Black Sun Star area, she naturally couldn't be Jiang Tian. Besides, although Jiang Tian was talented, he couldn't have broken through so quickly and reached the Void Return realm or the power of a sage in just a few years. The most important thing was that her master also said that if a sage of Void Return realm wanted to cross the Sea of Stars, he would need a secret space treasure to cross the Sea of Stars in a few years. According to Lian Huahuan's observation, the cultivation civilization in the entire Milky Way didn't have the method and materials to refine a secret space treasure. The method could be made quickly, but the materials couldn't be made quickly. Jiang Tian couldn't have a secret space treasure in a short time. Alas, I was too wishful thinking. When Jiang Tian becomes a sage of Void Return and comes to this world, maybe my life will be exhausted and I will become an old woman with wrinkled skin and a crane head with shaking teeth. I can even say that I have already died and turned into a few dry bones and a slope of yellow soil. Huang Linger was out of her wits. She staggered away and forgot to say goodbye to Hua Xiangrong. What a weirdo! Could it be that Huang Linger and Jiang Xiqing know each other? Looking at Huang Linger's receding figure, Hua Xiangrong was suspicious and let her imagination run wild. But that's not right. The Black Sun Star area and the Milky Way galaxy are separated by countless galaxies in the Sea of Stars. Their cultivation is not high, and the key is that they don't have a secret space treasure. They are like butterflies that can't fly across the sea. How can they meet each other? Although Jiang Tian's fief was in Hanjiang City and other areas of Nanjiang, the national master was in charge of the imperial city. Jiang Tian sat side by side with Elder Princess Mou in the carriage and set off for the imperial city. Dong Fang Ding sat with them in the lower seat. Dong Fang Ying hugged Jiang Beibei, as if she was the big sister next door. The four dukes, as well as the other marquises, stood on both sides, respectfully seeing him off. As he passed by the people of the Lin mansion of the Genuine Marquis. "Farewell, Imperial Tutor." Lin Hanqing, the Genuine Marquis, bowed deeply, his eyes brimming with tears. He really didn't understand. Why did Jiang Tian still choose to be a guest elder of the Lin family despite his heaven-defying strength and ability to stand shoulder to shoulder with the sect master of the Holy Lands and the sect master of the Holy Lands? Why did he do his best to resolve the crisis of the Lin family several times? It could be said that without Jiang Tian, the Lin clan would have long been toyed to death by Purple Marquis, destroyed under the iron hooves of the myriad demons' palace. "Farewell, Imperial Tutor." Lin Yang even knelt on the ground, as if he was a senior. "Take care." Jiang Tian turned his head and nodded with a faint smile. A deep look surfaced in his eyes. He knew that Dongfang Ding was trying to rope him in. For ordinary people, such a generous reward from Dongfang Ding would definitely win over people's hearts and make them loyal, willing to sacrifice their lives for Dongfang Ding. But in Jiang Tian's mind, these rewards from Dongfang Ding were not worth mentioning. After all, he had the chaotic divine body, the most powerful body in the universe, and what he pursued was a supreme realm. How transcendental and lofty was that? The treasures of heaven and earth, the mansions in the cities, and the titles of nobility in the mortal world were like passing clouds to him, and he didn't care about them at all. The Dongfang royal family and the Dongfang Empire combined were not as important as Lin Yang. After all, in his previous life, Lin Yang's family was destroyed and his Dao disappeared because of Jiang Tian. It doesn't matter how Dongfang Ding uses me. I spent a long time in this country in my previous life, and for me, this is also my hometown. As long as he doesn't hurt the Lin clan out of jealousy, I'm willing to do more for this country and its people. Jiang Tian sighed in his heart. The imperial capital was located in the central part of the empire. It was vast and stretched for hundreds of miles. If it weren't for the flying Dharma artifacts, it would take a few days to cross it on a horse. The majestic city walls were as tall as mountains. They were made of dark iron and divine stone and shone with a metallic luster. They were covered with the marks of swords and sabers, telling the vicissitudes and ancientness of history. There were city gates on all sides and they were 1,000 meters tall. According to different directions, they were carved into the images of divine beasts such as vermilion birds and black tortoises. They were majestic, ferocious, and mighty. Looking from afar, they gave people a sense of psychological oppression. In the sky was full of brilliance and colorful images, forming layers of shields. The waves of Dharma power were strong. This place was protected by a formation that could kill void return saints, and it was impregnable. Even a meteorite wouldn't be able to break through the shield. In the city, there were many tall buildings and the streets were wide. It was much more prosperous than the metropolises on Earth. People bustled about. Crystal shops, deity pavilion, wind moon palace, elixir palace, divine weapon pavilion. All kinds of businesses were here. It was extremely luxurious, and mortals and cultivators mingled. In the sky, there were flashes of light from time to time. Those were cultivators flying on swords. There were also royal guards flying past to monitor the city and prevent all kinds of illegal activities. In the sky and on the ground, people came and went. Half of the people in the sky were cultivators. In such a place, no one dared to be rash. They might accidentally knock down a descendant of a feudal lord. If they were unlucky, they might directly step on the foot of a big shot of the royal family. There were even elders of the sacred grounds here. Although the royal family was wary of the alliance between feudal lords and hidden sects, they were also good at learning from the hidden sects and asking them to teach their descendants. A large river flowed through the imperial city like a jade belt. The river water was so clear that one could see the bottom at a glance. The fish in the water seemed to be floating in the air without anything to rely on. The green water plants were also lush and cute. The water surface was as calm as a mirror, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds. There were shadows of people in the palace. Huge basin-sized hibiscus flowers were blooming, and white cranes rose and fell. Along the two sides of the river, there were bustling mansions from time to time. The halls were continuous, and the light of treasures flickered. Furthermore, he had set up a spirit-gathering formation. Streams of invisible spirit chi came from all directions like tentacles. The Kanglan River was the most important river in the imperial capital. There were several high-grade spirit springs in it. Mortals often drank from it, and their lifespan could be doubled. This river was also controlled by the imperial capital and was heavily guarded. The royal family, feudal lords, and ministers liked to set up their mansions on the two sides of the river. They rushed like ducks, wanting to occupy the land. It could even be said that only those powerful feudal lords and ministers had the opportunity to build mansions here. Ordinary people might not have the opportunity. Among the mansions, the one with the best location, the widest area, the densest spirit chi, and the most exquisite and unique building was the overlooking river mansion. It used to be the Crown Prince Mansion, and now it was the Grand Preceptor Mansion. Today, under the eyes of thousands, the Grand Preceptor Mansion finally welcomed its new master. Although a lot of red tape was avoided, Jiang Tian still felt tired and cumbersome when he met the Emperor, Eastern Lu, and other important members of the royal family. Accompanied by Crown Prince Dongfang Ding, he took the carriage to the overlooking river mansion. As soon as Jiang Tian got out of the carriage, he felt a familiar breath. He glanced around and saw Hua Xiangrong standing under the tall archway of the Grand Preceptor Mansion, surrounded by several practitioners, waiting for him. Chapter 1968. Jiang Tian shook his sleeves slightly, looked at Crown Prince Dongfang Ding, and said with a smile, "Hua Xiangrong is here. I wonder if your highness would condescend to meet her?" "She's here so soon?" Dongfang Ding's face changed dramatically, and the void around him suddenly blurred. That was the reason why the fluctuating Taoist heart caused the law to become unstable and interfered with the real space. But, Dongfang Ding, you're a genius. The law you've condensed and controlled is of a high level. Since you can easily interfere with the space, it must be at least the 9th level, if not the divine level. Jiang Tian looked calm, but he was amazed in his heart. The Luoying sect is a famous and orthodox sect on the continent, with a noble status and great influence. Of course, I have to meet them. Dongfang Ding smiled, but he was quite helpless in his heart. He originally thought that although the national master killed Su Xiaotang and offended the Luoying sect, he could at least use the national master to suppress the rebellious lords and wipe out the pantheon of demons. But he didn't expect the Luoying sect to come to denounce him so soon. However, Dongfang Ding was the crown prince of a country after all. He had received strict education and cruel training since childhood, so his mind was far stronger than that of ordinary people. The more flustered he was, the calmer he looked. With his hands clasped behind his back, he was majestic, without the slightest cowardice. He walked a few steps behind Jiang Tian. How all the people in the world come for profit, and all the people in the world go for profit. The immortals in the 9 heavens are like this, so the emperors in the human world are no different from ordinary people. They are even worse, more cunning, insidious, and vicious. But it's okay for you to use me, but I will make you worry. Jiang Tian wanted to laugh, but he didn't show it on his face. With his big sleeves fluttering in the wind, he walked to Hua Xiangrong's side and said with a smile, "Fairy, long time no see." What a powerful hiding cultivation method. Hua Xiangrong turned around abruptly and saw the carriage and the guards of honor flying toward the mansion. She couldn't help but change her pretty face and shudder with fear. She stared at the Kanglan River in a daze just now, thinking about the mysterious and unimaginable strength of Jiang Tian and Huang Linger's strange reactions. But now that she had reached the divinity transformation stage, her spiritual awareness was extremely vast, and her senses were incredibly sharp. She had already spread out her spiritual awareness like an invisible fishing net as a warning. It could be said that within a radius of a few dozen miles, from the clouds in the sky, the primordial qi in the air, the laws and great Tao in the world, to the grass and trees swaying in the wind, the insects and birds crawling and flying, Nothing could escape her senses. However, she actually didn't notice Jiang Tian, his treasured carriage, and his reliance at all. The treasured carriage had countless complicated symbols circulating about it. There were tens of thousands of materials, and the magical power was powerful and heterogeneous. There were over 100 attendants and guards with different bloodlines, cultivation levels, and auras. That made it even more complicated. But Jiang Tian actually used his own concealment technique to completely conceal himself, causing him to hide in the void, completely restrained. This concealment technique was unimaginably powerful. It could be said to be deceiving the heavens and concealing the earth. Fairy, have you come on this trip to take revenge for your moronic junior sister? Are you trying to make things difficult for me? Unfortunately, you don't deserve it. I can poke you to death with one finger. If your master, Saint Qianma, comes in person, she is barely worthy of my attack. Jiang Tian was like a celestial being who stood above the entire continent and looked down on the world. His eyes were filled with arrogance as he spoke with a fake smile. Next to him, the smile on Dongfang Ding's face collapsed rapidly like a landslide. He could no longer maintain it. He was so scared that he couldn't even stand. National Master, you don't have to trick me like this, do you? She can't defeat you, but if she wants to bully the Dongfang royal family and make trouble for us, it's as easy as taking something out of her pocket. Dongfang Ding wanted to cry but had no tears. Although Hua Xiangrong's strength was not as strong as Jiang Tian's, it was at least far stronger than the 4 dukes and elder princess Mou. This meant that if those hidden old monsters of the royal family didn't take action, she could wipe out the Dongfang Empire alone and be invincible. Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong was also furious for a moment. She was so angry that her plump chest rose and fell violently, and her nose was also slightly twitching. Jiang Xiqing is simply too arrogant. It's fine that she doesn't take me seriously, but she even disrespects my master. The cultivators who came with him were even more flabbergasted. They had long heard that Jiang Tian was domineering and arrogant, and they had made all kinds of mental preparation and construction, but they didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so domineering. However, thinking of her master's terrible evaluation of Jiang Tian, Hua Xiangrong also forced herself to calm down, bent her knees, and saluted lightly. I'm not seeking revenge or provocation. That Su Xiaotang is really stupid and violated the ancestral teachings of our sect, so she was killed by Saint Xiqing. She deserved it. She spoke softly, like a gentle breeze and drizzle, giving a comfortable feeling like a spring breeze, and her attitude was very modest. Seeing that Jiang Tian's expression seemed to be eased, Hua Xiangrong's attitude became more humble, and she said softly, My master, Saint Qianma, learned that you are noble and upright. You killed Marquis Purple Robe, quelled the rebellion of the empire, and protected the people. Killing Su Xiaotang upholds the doctrine of the Luoying sect, and also upholds the reputation of my master and the integrity of the sect. Therefore, not only does she not blame you, but she is also very grateful. She specially sent 3 holy weapons and 10 holy elixirs to express her gratitude. She also congratulates you on becoming the national master of the empire. Noble character and unquestionable integrity, upright and outspoken, protecting the common people, 3 holy weapons, 10 holy elixirs to express her gratitude as a congratulatory gift. Next to them, Dongfang Ding was completely dumbfounded. He was no longer as handsome and extraordinary as he used to be. The air of an emperor had long since disappeared into thin air. He was like a 3-year-old kid who got a lot of candy and long-desired gifts during a festival. He was so excited that he trembled all over, and his face was filled with boundless ecstasy. It was no exaggeration to say that his face was bursting out. This feeling was like riding a roller coaster, suddenly going straight to the 9th heaven to catch the moon, and suddenly falling straight to the 9th hell. It was too exciting. Then, it would be impolite of me to refuse. Jiang Tian directly reached out with a smile. Don't change your face too quickly. Don't be so smooth and natural, like 2 masks that you can change at will. Hua Xiangrong and other disciples of the Luoying sect were all stunned and couldn't believe it. When you see natural treasures and holy weapons, you change your attitude. He doesn't have the demeanor of a master at all. I've never seen such a shameless person. Lingering in the mortal world, unbearable vulgarity, greed, anger, and infatuation, his Taoist heart should be broken. How could he cultivate into a deity-grade nascent soul and have the strength of a sage? He is simply a lucky bastard. Could it be that he is just lucky? Is this the legendary son of heaven, the son of destiny? But looking at Jiang Tian's outstretched hand, everyone was convinced that everything in front of them was true. For a moment, they were crazily complaining in their hearts. Chapter 1969. Hua Xiangrong looked at Jiang Tian in a daze. Jiang Tian's face was calm, and his eyes were deep with obvious time accumulation. There was no flicker in his eyes, showing his firm heart, but they were also very clear and transparent, like a gem that had been polished to become rounder and brighter. I see. His mortal aura is lingering. If he wants to turn into a god, he has to turn into a mortal first, just like rejuvenating and returning to nature. He's clearly an old monster who has lived for a long time, a terrifying almighty being, but he's still pure and innocent. Only now did Hua Xiangrong feel the strange charm of Jiang Tian. This kind of charm was based on experience and strength. Moreover, Hua Xiangrong realized that Jiang Tian began to turn into a mortal, using the mortal world to sharpen his mind and strengthen his connection with the mortal world. He was probably only one step away from the god transformation realm. Jiang Tian's combat power was already so incredible when he was in the nascent soul realm. He could even kill the abyss demon dragon who had the strength of a saint of void return. Once he broke through to the god transformation realm, it would be another qualitative change, like a fish leaping over the dragon gate, reaching the sky in one step. By then, Jiang Tian would be invincible among his peers. He might be able to defeat all the god transformation realm cultivators and even easily suppress the saints of void return. Thinking of this, Hua Xiangrong was more and more shocked. Don't just talk about it. Where are the gifts? Jiang Tian urged. Sir, my sect is a holy sect, and my master, Saint Qianma, is a person who keeps her promises. How can I go back on my words? Hua Xiangrong smiled slightly. After that, she made a gesture with her fingers, and her face was slightly red. She seemed to have used all her strength to take out 3 divine weapons and a bottle of elixir. Swish! Before the vast power of the 3 divine weapons spread out, Jiang Tian waved his hand and put the 3 divine weapons and elixir into the sleeve of his wide robe. Is this the legendary heaven and earth in the sleeve? Creating a cave? He's too strong. He erased the imprint with just a flick of his finger and left behind his own spiritual imprint. Hua Xiangrong and others were shocked again, and there was a storm in their hearts. They admired Jiang Tian to the extreme. The numinous treasure already had its own consciousness. He had to refine it several times and merge it with his soul before he could reach the level of being one with it. Only then would he be able to manipulate it as he wished. Not to mention a saint weapon that was several levels higher. In order to ensure the safety of sending the 3 divine weapons to Jiang Tian, not only did Saint Qianma's divine sense brand remain in the divine weapons, but before they set off, Hua Xiangrong also spent half a month to refine her divine sense brand in the weapons. This was like adding a few unbreakable password locks, but Jiang Tian actually erased the imprint with a raise of his hand and opened the password lock. This was simply like the help of God, unbelievable. This woman is an extraordinary woman. She is extraordinary and has a great vision. Jiang Tian accepted the holy weapon and started to have a good impression of Saint Qianma. Unlike Su Xiaotang and others who only took the doctrines of the Luoying sect as a mantra, Saint Qianma sincerely practiced those doctrines that seemed to be open and aboveboard but also seemed to be too big to be proper. She did not discount the doctrines. In every organization and every civilization, there were some mainstays to maintain order and ensure the healthy operation of the body. Saint Qianma's vision had long surpassed the small families, countries, and even the hidden sections. She was fighting for this continent. However, Jiang Tian would not think too much. He just had deep feelings for the Eastern Empire, or to be exact, the Lin family of Marquesian. What else does your master want to say? Jiang Tian looked at Hua Xiangrong. My master hopes to join forces with you to suppress the pantheon of demons. Hua Xiangrong said concisely. Crown Prince Dongfang Ding was overjoyed when he heard this. The pantheon of demons had always been a threat to the empire. However, it was too powerful. With the original strength of the empire, it was impossible to destroy it. Now, with Jiang Tian and the help of the Luoying sect, it was almost a sure win. Good. That's exactly what I want. Jiang Tian clapped his hands and said leisurely, the conflict between the pantheon of demons and the empire and even the Saint Origin continent is not as simple as the conflict between different races. It's the conflict between good and evil. The pantheon of demons has been corrupted by devil qi. If they don't kill, they will bring disaster to the entire continent and billions of people. Tell your master that I'll wait for the good news. Yes, Master Nation. Hua Xiangrong said goodbye and left. However, when she was about to fly away, she suddenly stopped, turned around, and asked with a frown, Sir, do you know a rogue cultivator named Huang Linger from the Milky Way? No, I don't know her. Jiang Tian's face was as calm as an ice sculpture. His eyes were like a dry well without any ripples. I think that Huang Linger must have made a mistake. Hua Xiangrong smiled apologetically. Who is she? What mistake did she make? Jiang Tian asked calmly. The Saint Origin continent was the only way to reach the central galaxy from the Milky Way. Who knew if the immortal monarch would go crazy and occasionally take a look at the Saint Origin continent? The immortal monarch lived in the 9 heavens and overlooked all the worlds. He could see the stars as clearly as he could see the lines on his palm. He could trace the past and deduce the future. He was almost omniscient. In short, it was better to be safe than sorry. Since the day he became Jiang Xiqing, he had nothing to do with his homeland. This woman is the same as Master Nation. She comes from the Milky Way, which is even more desolate. She is now the disciple of Lian Huahan, the saintess of my sect, Hua Xiangrong said truthfully. Recently, Renfenglio's 100 Flowers chart was released. This woman is ranked 3rd among the top 10 beauties of the Saint Origin continent. Another young male disciple interrupted excitedly. She is really famous. If one day I can see her face, it will be wonderful. Jiang Tian's eyes lit up. He had a very interested look on his face, which was in line with his worldly and unbearably vulgar persona. Ahem. It's not a problem now, but it will be difficult in the future. That young male disciple suddenly felt that Jiang Tian's vulgarity was very cute and easy to get close to. He smiled and said, Thunder Yang Sec's Zhongzi Yang Ding Tian proposed marriage to Fairy Ling, with a generous gift a few days ago. Master Lian Huahan has agreed to the engagement. This is what you don't understand. Although the famous flower is taken, I will loosen the soil. Not to mention that she is just engaged, even if she is officially married and becomes a Dao companion, we still have a chance. Jiang Tian smiled naughtily, like old Wang next door. His eyes were restrained, and his emotions were hidden. No one noticed that his eyes were overflowing with monstrous killing intent. Huang Linger. This was a girl who made him feel a little bit of pain and guilt whenever he mentioned her. He had never forgotten her. This girl who was entangled with him in both his previous and current lives. This girl who was infatuated with him but never entangled with him. She was devoted to him but always hid in the dim places outside the spotlight, silently caring and supporting him. The current him already had a hard time defining his feelings for Huang Linger. It might not be the feelings between a man and a woman, but it was much deeper and heavier than this. He naturally knew of Jiang Tian. In fact, there weren't many people who knew this person better than Jiang Tian. He was proficient in the art of plucking and used female cultivators as his cauldron. He was extremely vicious. Once he dual cultivated, the woman's cultivation would plummet, and she might even die. As the Thunder Yang Sec's Zhongzi, Jiang Tian was naturally someone who couldn't be provoked easily. Furthermore, Jiang Tian still had to conceal his whereabouts and avoid the search and observation of the 9 heavens immortal world's giants. If it wasn't necessary, Jiang Tian naturally wouldn't seek trouble for himself. However, since Jiang Tian had designs on Huang Linger, then he had to provoke him. Yang Dingan had to die. The Thunder Yang sect had to be eliminated. At this moment, Jiang Tian had already sentenced them to death in his heart. Chapter 1970. National Preceptor, your actions are really as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. You can go anywhere you want, but you are also as unpredictable as white clouds and gray dogs. This humble one is truly in awe. That disciple of the Luoying sect naturally did not notice Jiang Tian's mood and smiled awkwardly but politely. After Hua Xiangrong left, Jiang Tian finally stepped into this luxurious mansion. Crown Prince Dongfang Ding accompanied him respectfully and introduced the scenery and unique ingenuity of each place. The entire National Preceptor's mansion covered an area of 20 miles. It was luxurious and continuous. Every building was extremely exquisite, engraved with exquisite runes and inlaid with exquisite magic stones, which had many functions such as gathering spiritual energy, clearing the mind, nourishing the body, defense, and so on. The light of treasures was dazzling, and the sky was full of light. Clouds were rising, and the dense spiritual qi was like a celestial palace descending to the human world. Stepping into it, people would feel refreshed and energetic. Everywhere in the garden, there were winding corridors connected to each other. Rockery and strange rocks were arranged in a picturesque manner. Clear and bright lakes were like gemstones. Ancient peach trees that were thousands of years old were planted in the surroundings. Vines as thick as an arm snaked around, and orchids swayed gently in the wind. Streams flowed over the clean stones like jade belts. A few palace maids were frolicking by the side of the stream, letting out waves of bell-like laughter. Under the sunlight, their fair and tender feet reflected a dazzling light like white jade. Seeing Jiang Tian and the Crown Prince passing by, they hurried ashore, stood respectfully with hands behind their backs, and said with fear and uneasiness, "Greetings, National Preceptor, Crown Prince. These palace maids are carefully selected from all over the country by my subordinates. They are not only young and beautiful, but also have vital yin. If you cultivate with them by plucking them, you can balance yin and yang and strengthen your foundation. They are specially presented by me to you. Come, greet the National Preceptor." After the disciples of the Luoying sect left, Dongfang Ding regained his usual temperament and confidence, and introduced them with joy. These palace maids were either cute, witty, or charming. They were in their budding years and were at the most beautiful, natural, and clean age for women. Moreover, they all had extraordinary physiques, with smooth skin and jade bones, and exuded an ecstatic natural fragrance. Greetings, National Preceptor. I am Chunha. Greetings, National Preceptor. I am Cherry. Your servant is Jade Rabbit. This servant is Soft Fragrance. Hearing Dongfang Ding's words, these palace maids all curtsied and stepped forward to greet him. Some of them blushed, feeling extremely embarrassed and bashful. Some of them raised their eyebrows and boldly gazed at Jiang Tian. Their gazes were fiery, like a beautiful rose in full bloom, ostentatious and charming. Some were as gentle as water, completely obedient, allowing Jiang Tian to do whatever he wanted. The Crown Prince is too considerate. Jiang Tian laughed and glanced at the group of women. He nodded slightly in appreciation, which was in line with his image of a person who was obsessed with pleasure. State Preceptor, it's not right for you to address me in such a manner. You are an otherworldly expert, the savior of the Eastern Empire, the pillar of the empire. I see you as my teacher, so I should greet you as a disciple. Dongfang Ding's tone was humble, as if he was terrified. Ding, what's wrong with you? The State Preceptor is an otherworldly expert, aloof from worldly affairs, and doesn't get close to women. Aren't you disturbing his peace and dirtying his eyes by bringing these vulgar powders over? Right at this moment, a delicate shout that carried anger sounded out from the forest by the lake. The lake was clear and bright, covered in a riot of falling petals and a rain of flowers. On the shore were expanses of thousand-year-old peach trees that were extremely dense and covered in bright-colored dresses. The peach blossoms danced, and the entire lake was covered in a layer of pink. Waves of fragrance drifted over and refreshed the mind. The sparkling and translucent rain of flowers sprinkled down like red clouds and pink mist, enveloping the lake. It was extremely beautiful, as if it was a paradise. Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. The most striking thing was that there were over 10 beautiful young girls bathing in the lake. Their black hair was like a waterfall, their lotus-like arms were like mist and snow, and their translucent jade bodies flickered with an alluring luster. Compared to the rain of flowers that filled the sky, they were even more attractive. They were even more alluring and charming than the young girls that were washing their feet by the stream. Following this shout, the young girls were so scared that they all wrapped themselves in gauze and entered the peach forest. Following the small path, they fled in panic. Her graceful and alluring body was faintly discernible, unable to be blocked at all. It was extremely tempting. However, the beautiful scenery didn't last long and quickly disappeared. Ant Ding knows his wrongs. Dongfang Ding was so scared that his entire body trembled. "Mou, you really care too much. Who said I don't get close to women? I was planning to use these women to tempt my Dao heart and temper my consciousness. Crown Prince, you've done well. Corrode me to your heart's content." Jiang Tian, on the other hand, chuckled as he looked at Grand Princess Mou who had come through the forest. The Imperial Advisor is an expert who has achieved the Dao. His heart is like a mirror, like refined steel, clear and tough. Why would he need such a tempering? Grand Princess Mou's beautiful face was covered in frost. Her eyes were cold, as if she wanted to tell the whole world that she was unhappy. As for Dongfang Ying, she followed behind him and stuck out her tongue at Jiang Tian, hinting that Jiang Tian had just gotten quite angry with the Grand Princess. "Greetings, Grand Princess. Greetings, little princess." The palace maids were so scared that their faces turned pale and their delicate bodies trembled. All of them kept quiet out of fear and did not dare to breathe loudly. They were even more nervous than facing Jiang Tian and the Crown Prince. "Look, you scared the children." Jiang Tian had a helpless look on his face as he waved his hand to dismiss the palace maids. "Halt!" However, Grand Princess Mou shouted coldly. "Sir." The group of palace maids were so scared that their delicate bodies trembled slightly. They were about to cry and were about to cry. Grand Princess Mou strolled over, her dignified gaze sweeping across the palace maids, and said coldly, "Mr. Imperial Advisor is busy with state affairs and has a myriad of matters to attend to every day. Remember, no one is allowed to disturb Lord Imperial Advisor. If I find out which little hussy dares to charm the Imperial Advisor and delay the Empire's important matters, kill without mercy." "Yes, sir." This servant will remember Grand Princess's orders. This time, the palace maids were so scared that they immediately burst into tears. Mou was the Empire's female war god, the commander of the army, an existence that killed people like scything flax. In their hearts, that was simply too terrifying. "Charm? It's just a bunch of children." Jiang Tian was rather helpless. That might not be the case. Lord Imperial Advisor's charm is extraordinary. These girls are in love for the first time, so it's inevitable that they would have improper thoughts. A meaningful smile appeared at the corner of Mou's mouth, as if he was proud of himself. "I can't control you, Saint Siqing, but can I control these little girls?" In the next moment, Grand Princess Mou's expression suddenly turned serious, and she said, "Lord Imperial Advisor, women are just a small matter. After this matter is over, I will personally help you choose a few stunning women, all of whom are at the nascent soul stage." "And, are we going to start now?" Dongfang Ding, who had always been calm, actually had a hint of nervousness on his face. He was asking Grand Princess Mou, but his gaze was fixed on Jiang Tian. "There's no time to lose. Strike while the iron is hot." Jiang Tian's expression also became solemn, and he said seriously, "After the battle of the purple-robed marquis at this moment, the prestige of the country is unprecedentedly heavy. And once this opportunity is missed, then the vassals are likely to look for backers." Previously, when the purple-robed marquis looked for the pantheon of demons, who knows if the other vassals will look for other backers, such as the Thunder Yang sect or the Tian Luo sect. Therefore, tonight the imperial advisor will hold a housewarming banquet and release the military power with a cup of wine. The vassals will hand over their fiefs and titles, and according to their merits, they will be conferred as ministers and generals. The fief system will be changed to the county system, and the hereditary system will be changed to the official appointment system. Those who disobey will be killed without mercy. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.